You started to notice that sometimes the giant's eyes seem to glow a bit more than others, almost like they're catching every bit of light in the room. Considering that their eyes are mostly varying shades of red, it's a pretty terrifying effect. Loki's got that going on now. Instinct is telling you to run. Running is probably a bad idea. Apparently, no one else at the table has noticed, and you cram one of the bitter, crumbling biscuits into your mouth. So now is probably a good time to evaluate the situation. First up, you're basically a glorified lapdog here, and you aren't supposed to be sitting at the table. But you are. Secondly, one of the planet's terrifying princes has decided to sit down right next to you, which probably makes the whole thing a lot more scandalous. And thirdly, that prince's nutty, jealous older brother is looking like he's pretty pissed about it. Well, Loki, maybe if you kept me a little closer, I wouldn't be stuck at the table with your brother. And then you mentally slap yourself. What are you thinking? Wishing that you were at his side or on his lap rather than sitting at the table like a normal person? But his lap, you concede, is certainly much more comfortable. And he does smell really nice. And he did sneak away to hold you during the night, which honestly was probably just him being selfish, but he'd known that you were afraid, and he'd known that you were worried about the trip. And some part of you can't help but hope that part of the reason he showed up was just to check on you.
Did you show the mortal the book, Gjalep?
I did, sire. She has been enjoying the illustrations.
A book for a mortal, Prince Bylester? And what sort of book might that be?
The Annals of Vedra Unga.
Heiðr shares a quick look to her brother, and Hrossþjófr leans forward, a slight, almost conspiratorial smile on his lips.
Truly? I did not know that Bylester Farbotason had any interest in the history of Vadraunga Ulefgrinir.
The apathy in Bylester's voice doesn't waver in the slightest, and if you were brave enough to risk a look at him, you were certain that he'd be doing that weird little head-cocking thing that must be a family trait.
It is the business of princes to be well-learned, is it not? Besides, despite his many faults, the Witch King was a masterful painter, and as the mortal cannot read...
I can read. Your eyes widen in shock as you realize that you actually said that out loud. Well, snapped, really. And every giant at the table turns their attention on you. That's exactly what you wanted to avoid. Ugh, why can't you just keep your damn mouth shut? Griep seems pretty tense too, so you can only assume that this was another one of those situations that might merit the punishment you keep hearing about. And you're pretty sure that you're starting to get a little lightheaded. Oh crap, I'm gonna die for my pride. I guess that's my mortal sin.
Can you now, in Unga? But nothing of our world, correct? Nothing useful.
He's just as condescending as his brother. Maybe even more. Is Loki still watching you? Probably. Blushing, you think about the little scrap of paper tucked away in your bra. I'm learning. You hurriedly reply, not taking quite as much time to consider your words as you should. I definitely did not help with your not seeming interesting agenda, apparently. The next thing you know, there's a finger under your chin, and Bylester's twisting your face around so that he can look at you.
You are learning.
He almost sounds surprised. So maybe teaching a human pet to read is some kind of scandal, too. Loki doesn't seem to particularly care much about being scandalous. You decide to keep your mouth shut.
Well, mortal?
Yes, sire. You manage to bite out. There's a slight shift in his expression, as he seems to come to some kind of understanding.
And masterfully instructed by none other than my exalted brother, no doubt. He certainly spends more than enough time with you.
It's then that you notice the ever so slight flare of his nostrils, and you realize that he's scenting you like some kind of bloodhound. Great. And you can only assume that, based on the very vague sense of irritation you're picking up from little brother here, that you must smell strongly of the king. Maybe that's a good thing?
Why would he not?
Hrossþjófr asks, in between tearing bites of some kind of meat from an oddly curved bone. He doesn't seem nearly as concerned about propriety as the others, and you wonder if it's because of his special status as part of the Valva's little entourage, or if he's really just that careless. Maybe it's both.
The lords of old kept mortals to warm them at night, and some of the ladies were said to as well. It's practically a tradition. You truly cannot criticize the king for that.
If it's possible, your cheeks flush even hotter. Oh, wonderful. Everyone's thinking on banging Loki. That is just... And then you flinch as a hand suddenly squeezes your shoulder, and Bylester releases your chin, looking instead to whoever it is that is now standing behind you. Except, you already know who it is, even before you hear the silk in his voice. You're starting to notice that you can smell him too. That's probably not a good thing.
How true, Hrossþjófr. In fact, one might even say that it is unwise to criticize the king at all.
Loki says. His thumb presses into the muscle at the juncture of your neck and back, and you realize just how tense you would become. It hurts a bit, but it's also almost relaxing. Across the table, poor Gjalp's blue skin has paled slightly, though the Storm Twins are apparently unconcerned about the decidedly malevolent presence hovering behind you. Ah, King Loki, join us, please, Heiðr says.
I come to tell you to make ready to leave. Lady Skadi claims that a storm is brewing to the east, and I would like to make as much progress as possible before we are trapped here.
Hrossþjófr's smile is sly.
I might have thought you'd wish to rest longer, sire, after riding out in the snow all through the night.
You don't miss the confused look Gjalp and Griep exchange at that, but it seems like they aren't going to question it. And you certainly aren't going to risk saying anything else either. But does that mean that he somehow snuck away from the head of the convoy without anyone else noticing? How? And why would he go to that much effort, just to avoid looking weak for needing a rest?
Yes, well, Heiðr is useful for many things, isn't it? Get up, mortal.
I'm not finished with my freaking lunch, or breakfast, or whatever this is, you internally gripe. You've kind of lost track of time. Being surrounded by a pack of giants had kind of stifled your appetite, but that doesn't mean you won't be hungry later. You're probably burning calories like crazy just to stay warm. Still, this is definitely one of those don't argue with Loki moments, so you awkwardly scramble off to the bench, trying not to kick either Bylester or Griep in the process. It isn't exactly easy, and the fact that the bench is really too tall for you just makes the whole thing worse. You're kind of expecting Loki to bark out some kind of orders once you're on your feet, but he doesn't. Instead, he seizes hold of your arm and drags you towards the door. Or at least, he makes it look like he's dragging you away. You can't help but notice that his grip isn't actually all that tight this time. The snow is deep outside, and he pauses for a moment on the threshold, almost as if he'd forgotten that you were even shorter than he is, and you can't exactly speed walk through it. You realize that he's just being impulsive then, and you fight the urge to roll your eyes. Loki sighs, and that should be your clue to expect something ridiculous, but he moves before you have a chance to react, slinging you over his shoulder. And then he stalks forward, the snow simply melting away in his path. If you were to close your eyes, you could almost pretend that you were back in the cave, except of course you aren't currently dying, and Loki doesn't smell like blood. So all things considered, you guess it could be worse. Some of the giants outside are watching with open fascination, particularly the ones that seem to be local to whatever this particular place is. What a show they're getting. Their new surprise king and his pet human all at once. One of the older-looking men actually has the nerve to point at you, and you're pretty sure that you hear the word Midgard drifting through the wind. Take a picture, it'll last longer. Loki lets out a surprised little huff. Was that a laugh? You don't dare say anything else until he's hauled you into the sleigh and shut the door firmly behind you, dropping you carelessly onto one of the piles of cushions. You just caused a scene. Everyone probably thinks...
I don't particularly care what they think, mortal. Those in power are always afforded their eccentricities.
Whatever. You curl up under one of the blankets, determined to sulk. Why did you do that? You told me not to draw attention to myself, and you keep drawing attention to me.
Whims of the king,
he says dismissively. But then he hesitates as he turns to leave, coming back to crouch before you, a puzzled sort of frown creasing his brow.
You were frightened.
Well, yes,
It angered me.
You weren't really sure how to respond to that. In fact, Loki almost looked surprised that he said it. Instead, the two of you just stare at each other in silence for a moment or two. You could just keep me with you next time. But I guess I won't be very good at collecting gossip that way.
No. I suppose you wouldn't.
Clearing your throat, you finally force yourself to break his gaze. You're kind of worried that he's hypnotizing you. It would probably be a good idea to ask someone if that's a thing sorcerers can actually do here, because Loki's definitely got something unnatural going on with his eyes, and you aren't entirely certain how to combat it. Speaking of gossip, is it against some kind of law for me to learn to read? No books for lowly humans or something?
I neither know nor care. I am above the law. And if I want to show you runes, then I will.
A tiny prickle of excitement sparks in your chest at that. Being able to read the books on this stupid planet would be so incredibly wonderful. It would give you something to do other than sitting around, simultaneously bored and panicking, at least. So, you're going to show me more? Whatever strange mood he's in seems to finally break, and he grins.
Of course, mortal. If you earn it. Was that not the bargain?
Oh. Well, do you want me to tell you everything I've heard so far?
Now is not a good time, I'm afraid. I spoke the truth. We do need to leave as quickly as possible.
But he doesn't move for the door, and your breath catches as he reaches forward and gently angles your head back, dragging his thumb slowly across your chin, almost like he's wiping Bylester's touch away. But no. You tell yourself that you're just being stupid, probably reading way too far into it. He's just a fickle, handsy guy, and he likes keeping you on edge. That's probably all it is. Loki's lips part slightly, and you freeze, your heart hammering against your ribs. The moment is broken by a rustling outside, and he rocks back on his heels.
I will see you tonight, pet.
He softly assures, and then he's gone, disappearing into the flurry of snow outside the door. The twins join you only a moment later, an overjoyed Griep holding her giant, snow-covered fox in her arms. In no time at all, the sleigh lurches into motion. You're still trying to remember the way his fingers felt on your skin. Knowing the king like you do, he's going to be either really pissed or really impressed that you've convinced the twins to show you some more runes. Granted, they aren't exactly fantastic teachers. They tend to just point to a random character on the page and make the sound, but it's better than nothing. You're hoping he'll be mostly impressed. Gjalep and Griep have been slightly subdued ever since Loki tossed you into the sleigh, and as nosy as they are, you're kind of surprised they haven't asked anything about it yet. Based on how stricken Gjalep looked when he appeared at the table, they must think that he dragged you off to do something terrible. The really embarrassing thing is that Given what they've said so far, they either could be assuming that the something terrible was straight up beating you, or, well, probably something sexual. Snowball rolls onto his back, dragging your attention back to the present. He nips at Griep's finger, and when she hisses and bares her teeth at him, his ears flatten into what can only be interpreted as remorse. You watch as the fox licks her fingers, and just like that, all seems to be forgiven, and Griep turns back to her book. You're kind of starting to notice that the Jotnar are exceedingly cat-like. You thought that was just a Loki thing, but maybe it actually is an all-giant thing. Maybe you could try hissing at Bylester next time he gets too close. Or Loki. Loki would probably lose his damn mind if you tried something like that. The image you conjure up on his face is pretty priceless, and you let out a sharp laugh.
What is the matter, Inanga?
But what can you say? Definitely not the truth. Maybe a half-truth will do the trick. Oh, I was thinking about the king. He's confusing. Well, this whole place is confusing, really. Job clears her throat.
He was not harsh with you, was he? I cannot imagine why he...
You are naive. Illy is clearly angered because Prince Bylester has taken an interest in his pet. Bylester intentionally needles him.
Do you know the prince well? I mean, it seems like he's pretty comfortable around you, and you're around the same age, right?
Yes, indeed. The Queen Mother is from our clan, you know. Though King Lafe was of the Hrimthursar, the princes spent much of their youth in the forests.
Hrimthursar, the true frost giants.
I thought they were just called Jotnar.
By most they are. They prefer it, certainly. Hrimthursar is a tribal distinction, and Lafe's people like to imagine that they are above the tribes.
Now who is it that speaks too boldly, sister?
It is true. With Loki Lafesin on the throne, the Stormer Jotnar are certain to use it as an opportunity to regain prominence, and neither the king nor the Stormer Jotnar have any love for Lafe's people.
Oh, that's definitely some promising gossip. So, you think the Storm Giants are going to try to take advantage of some kind of clan loyalty? Because I don't think the king really cares too much about clans or anything like that. It isn't like he even knew about his mom a few days ago. Griep leans forward, conspiratorial, even though there's no one around to hear.
I think that while he may be entirely mad, Loki Lafesin is certainly clever. He will naturally fall in among his mother's people, and they would be delighted to support the reign of another Witch King.
But the queen says she supports him too.
Well, yes, but the court is a dangerous place, little mortal.
She wraps her arms around the purring Milraki in her lap, rubbing her face against his furry head. Snowball looks exceptionally pleased by the attention, his tiny pink tongue peeking out between his teeth. You wish he felt that content.
These are not things for you to fret over, Inanga. Court intrigue is hardly the concern of a mortal.
Job says, giving you a reassuring pat on the head. Well, maybe it wouldn't be if I wasn't caught smack in the middle of it. He's going to be back tonight. Griep looks up from Snowball's fur, startled.
What was that?
The king. Sighing, you snuggle further back into your cushions, picking up Bylester's book and flipping to the next page. He's going to come back tonight, like he did last night. They exchange a look, and you pretend not to notice, keeping your eyes glued to the page. While you can make out a couple of the runes on the page, you have no clue what they combine to actually say, and you give up after a few minutes and go searching for the next illustration. A flash of color a few pages away captures your attention, and your lips part in surprise as you uncover a very unexpected sight: a human woman. You're almost positive that she's human. There's a forest behind her, and it looks familiarly Earth-like. Her clothes look like something you've seen in history books, and her hair falls in sandy waves down to her waist. Most surprisingly of all is the sheer level of detail. The human woman in the book Bylester had shown you in the archives was clearly just some unnamed prop, but this woman's eyes are deep and somber. The painter clearly knew her. And the painter, you suddenly remember, was the supposedly mad Witch King. You can't resist. "What does this say? Who is this?" you ask, turning the book around. Gjalep takes the book from you.
Oh, a mortal. She is Vif, it says. Perhaps Hvedrungar met her on Midgard during his travels. This says that the forests of Midgard hold special magics.
So she's not someone you've heard of? She looks slightly uncomfortable at that, and her sister rushes to save her.
Mortals are rarely recorded in history in Unga. They live and die so quickly.
An awkward silence falls, and Gjalep hands the book back to you. You don't really feel like reading anymore, though, so you curl up instead, pulling the blanket almost entirely over your head. Somehow, despite the fact that literally everyone here calls you mortal, it's really hard to contemptualize the idea that you'll die of old age in what probably seems like no time at all to them. If I even make it to old age. You don't want to freak the twins out. It isn't their fault, and they've been sweet, even if they can be kind of obtuse sometimes. And so when you start to cry into your blanket, you hold yourself as still as possible. Maybe they can hear it, or maybe they can even smell it, but they give you your space. You appreciate that, really. It isn't like there's anything they can do. Eventually, you manage to fall asleep. When you wake up next, it's from a combination of things. A sudden drop of temperature in the sleigh, the sound of an irritated voice, and a fuzzy tickle against your chin.
Why has my mortal been crying?
Loki is asking in that deadly pleasant voice of his. You open your eyes to find the twins hovering near you, Snowball half sprawled across your lap. Oh, good lord, he's heavy. From the scene in front of you, you can only assume that the twins, in some sort of attempt to comfort you, decided that maybe snuggling up with a pet of your own was the way to go. It's incredibly touching, but also not incredibly comfortable, because the Melraki fox thing isn't exactly house cat sized, and he's currently attempting to curl up on your chest. It makes you wheeze.
Inanga was not feeling well, sire, and my sister and I thought that a pet might be comforting. They have them on Midgard. Pets, that is.
She falters under the weight of the king's glare. Snowball turns his head to smugly survey the room, as if to say, "Hey, am I doing a good job or what?" And then, as Loki's eyes narrow, the Melraki's head turns and gives your face an enthusiastic lick.
That's it.
Loki crosses the sleigh carriage in 2 strides, snatching the Melraki up by the nape of his neck and bodily dragging him to the door. He shoves it open and tosses Snowball outside, and then slams the door again.
Sire!
He is a wild animal, isn't he? He will survive.
There are tears in her eyes now, though she blinks them back convincingly enough. Way to go, Loki, you think, as he takes up his spot on the opposite end of the sleigh. Now they think you're a raving lunatic. Maybe he's like the giant version of people who can't stand cats. Maybe he's allergic and too embarrassed to admit it. Just the thought of Loki, proud, haughty King Loki, having a sneezing fit is weirdly amusing. Or maybe it is that he's just a raving lunatic. You make your way to him without even waiting for him to demand it. No reason to keep the crazy king waiting, after all. And besides, despite the awkwardness of it all, you honestly have been looking forward to it. Maybe. Just a little. Slumber parties with the king! Yay! And the supervillain. You should probably do a better job of remembering that part. The dude did devastate New York. He feels nice, though. Listening to his heartbeat is incredibly calming. That probably doesn't make it okay, but there it is.
Why were you crying?
His voice in your ear is so soft, you can barely hear it over the noise of the wind outside and the creaking of the sleigh. And the softness makes it seem so much more significant. Worried about dying?
Don't.
There's a pause for a moment or two, and you squeeze your eyes closed, pressing your cheek against his chest. You wonder if his injuries are still bothering him.
Would you like for me to spell you to sleep?
No, this is fine. It's early morning, you think, though it's still so dark out that not much light is making its way through the windows. Based on the way the sleigh is jerking and rumbling along, the storm that Loki mentioned must finally be rolling in, and you snuggle more soundly into the crook of his arm. It's a good thing that he's still asleep, because you would probably die if he knew that you were voluntarily cuddling up to him like this. But it's cold. Really, really cold. The temperature must have dropped during the night. You can almost see your breath fogging in the air. That's a good reason to stay cuddled up with the king, right? The twins are asleep too, and with no witnesses to catch you, you crane your neck to study his face. That's when you notice that there's a tiny hint of a smile on his lips, and your eyes narrow in suspicion. You're awake, aren't you? Loki cracks one eye open, his lips parting in a silent laugh.
I am. Please don't let that stop you. You are almost pleasing when you forget yourself this way.
You are such an ass, you think sourly. But you also don't budge at all. And you are a lot more pleasing when you're asleep.
Careful, mortal. You wouldn't want to wake your little friends, would you? I can hardly let you speak this way to the king, can I? I'd have to punish you.
There's a slight purr in his voice that immediately chases away the chill from the frigid air. And what are you gonna do? Toss me out into the storm just like Snowball? You bluster, trying to sit up a little to at least pretend that you weren't entirely complicit to this whole cuddling thing.
Spare me. That little wretch is far better suited for the climate than I am, and I cannot particularly recall you fretting over my well-being.
I kind of figured you could take care of yourself, Your Majesty.
I am rather exceptional.
There's an audible little smile in his voice, a pleased sort of contentedness that you aren't really familiar with, but you can't help but admit that you like. Huh. Maybe this is almost what he's like when he isn't taking over planets, you think. Except, is Loki ever not taking over planets? From what you know, his track record isn't exactly great. The twins are bundled up together, and you feel a pang of sympathy. Poor Griep. It's gotten really cold. Are you sure that's Snowball? Groaning in irritation, Loki rubs his cheek against your hair.
A truly idiotic name.
Hey, I came up with that.
Obviously. In any case, if that creature wants to find its way back to her, it will.
The sleigh sways sharply, and when you tense up, Loki's embrace tightens ever so slightly. You pretend not to notice. Maybe he's just tense too. They think you hurt me, you know. The twins.
Don't I?
It's not what you were expecting him to say, and it takes a while to think of a reply. Not really. I mean, not like they think. Not like you could. Does that bother you at all?
Does what bother me?
Being Inili. The bad guy. The villain.
No. No, mortal, it does not bother me.
I can't believe they're still asleep. Hasn't it been, years? I'm gonna end up spending the rest of my youth in this stupid sleigh on this stupid snow planet.
I am finding myself fantasizing with increasing frequency about the prospect of having you muzzled, mortal. Imagine that. Sweet, blissful silence. Peace.
I think you're lying, sire. You would get bored.
You are a thorn in my side. It has only been 7 or 8 hours, I expect. There's no reason to waste the energy to stay awake. You do well to follow their example.
I slept already. More than you, actually. Don't you need sleep?
I am not in the mood. Besides, I must be alert when it is time to halt and make temporary camp. Burden of the crown and all that.
The sleigh jerks again, and your fingers reflectively dig into the loose tunic he's wearing. In a way, it's kind of nice to think about the fact that he's probably pretty miserable in this freezing weather too, even if he isn't at risk of actually dying from it. You, on the other hand, are very much at risk of actually dying from it. It probably helps with the sense of camaraderie also, that he's lost his blueness sometime during the night. Is that an intentional thing that he does when he's around you, or does he not even notice? Does he just gradually revert to pale Loki whenever he isn't putting on a show for the other frost giants? He definitely seems to refer to his birth form as something clearly distinct from his real self. Poor guy. It's pretty messed up when you think about it. Are you gonna disappear again when we stop? He gazes down at you with a critical eye, and you take note of the dark circles that stand out much more sharply when he isn't blue.
Hoping to trade my company for that of the Firmball, are you? Oh, my dear little brother.
It's Snowball. And no on the brother. Definitely not. You know Bylester makes me nervous.
Yes, I know.
Loki falls silent. And though his eyes close as he reclines his head back against the cushion, none of the tension leaves him. There's something brittle about him, you decide. Something that makes it seem like he's barely holding all of the pieces of himself together. That's not good. It's not good because you need him to keep you alive. And it's doubtably not good because you're starting to actually care. That thought suddenly shoves all the others aside. You care? You really shouldn't. God knows he doesn't care about you. Except... How did you know I've been crying?
The salt of it in the air was unmistakable and disturbingly potent. I've been plagued by your weeping before, you'll recall.
Yeah, well, that's kind of your fault. I really don't get how all this scent stuff works.
Yes. Well, neither do I.
That doesn't surprise you, but the fact that he admitted it does. Loki continues unbidden, and the jostling of the sleigh leaves his hand resting on your hip, fingers splayed.
I've experienced vaguely similar sensations while in animal form. But this is different. More keen, and
He cuts himself off abruptly, drumming his fingers on your hip, watching them while he drifts off into thought. You wish, suddenly and surely, that there were fewer layers between his hand and your skin. And?
I do not enjoy feeling like a beast when I am in the form of a man.
Oh boy, is that a lot to unpack. You aren't really sure that he would appreciate anything comforting you might try to say anyway. His fingers continue to drum. Is it the same with the others?
Meaning what, mortal?
Like when you made Griep cry. Was it just as unpleasant?
No, as a matter of fact. Everything from you is much stronger. How interesting. Perhaps it is a species advantage, making prey easier to sniff out.
Prey?
Yes. My little mortal prey. So terribly easy to hunt. I wonder how far you'd have to run for in the snow to hide your tracks from me.
You know I'm not going to run, right?
It would certainly be foolish. But oh, what fun.
He's doing that thing again. The problematic thing where his voice drops and gets all gravelly. Damn him if he's doing that on purpose, you think. In fact, damn him either way. Because the thought of some nutty alien king chasing you down through the snow shouldn't make you blush. It should just freak you out. But you're definitely blushing. It's time to change the subject. So, this monster wolf, just how big are we talking?
I have no idea. He is tremendous, no doubt.
Your fingers fidget with the material of his shirt. It's honestly a little rough. Much rougher than whatever fabric he was wearing when he found you in the cave. But not too big for you, right?
No. He won't be too big for me.
Okay, that's good. But what? Raising one long, elegant finger to his lips, Loki shushes you.
Your little friends are beginning to stir. Best hold that tongue of yours in Unga.
Just use my actual name, you ass. But you know by now that he's doing it on purpose. And the more you react, the more he'll enjoy it. He's a weird one, that Loki. How long will it take you to feel like you can really keep up with his games? Maybe more years than you have left. It's a sobering notion. Griep wakes first, her back curving impressively as she stretches, yawning. You notice that Loki is staring at her, and for some reason, it kind of annoys you. Why can't he just act like a normal guy? Wouldn't it kill him to not be... Well, yeah, it might kill him, and you. You're in enemy territory. Appearances are everything. Just deal with it. It seems to take the Giantess a moment to notice that she's captured her new king's attention, and her hands immediately drop to her lap, vaguely contrite. You want to tell her that she shouldn't worry. He's pretty terrible, yes, but maybe not as terrible as she believes. But then you remember that he tried to destroy the entire planet that she lives on, so maybe Griep is actually the sensible one, and you're just overly confident in the quality and quantity of Loki's mercy.
Awake at long last. I begin to believe the two of you could sleep through Ragnarok.
Loki says. His fingers start their drumming again. Is he annoyed, or just anxious? Flushing, Griep opens her mouth to say something, but he cuts her off with a dismissive wave.
You've traveled this route before, haven't you?
Yes, my king, we have. There's only one clear path to Yarnvinder at this time of year. Any other routes are blocked by snow and ice.
She gives her sister a sharp nudge with her booted foot, and Gjalep bolts awake.
Go on then. Tell me where we are.
Loki replies, nodding towards the door. Is he nuts? You can clearly hear the roar of the blizzard outside. Does he really expect her to just hop out into it? Apparently he does, and after exchanging a slightly confused look with her twin, Griep gracefully rolls to her feet. He must be testing her, you realize, though you aren't actually sure why. Loyalty? Obedience? Or maybe he just likes making people jump. Cold wind blasts into the sleigh as soon as she cracks the door open, and you burrow deeper under the blankets and into Loki's chest, silently cursing his name. Griep leans outside and reaches up somewhere above the door, hoisting herself up with surprising nimbleness. If Loki is equally impressed, he doesn't show it. Gjalep seems to be doing her best to avoid blatantly staring at the king, but she's failing pretty miserably, and you can feel him tense up as he takes notice.
I choose my skin as I see fit. Does this bother you, Geredi Dottir?
Oh yeah, he's not blue anymore.
No, sire. I am reminded of when you came to court, when King Laufey still lived with the Asgardians.
Her voice peters out as she finishes, and from the look on her face, she's sincerely regretting saying anything. Unexpectedly, though, Loki laughs.
So you have seen Thor Odinson in all of his glory then, have you?
I have, just as I have seen you in yours.
You fear me.
Every subject fears their king, sire.
You're absolutely dying to know what they're talking about. The mention of Thor was unexpected, but at least he's kind of familiar. You've seen him on TV, and he's one of the good guys. Maybe if you're lucky, he'll show up. That would be nice, right? Having an Avenger show up and swoop you back to Earth. But what about Loki? The nagging worry is quickly buried as Griep tumbles back into the sleigh, wrenching the door closed behind her.
We near the cliffs of Ymir's Teeth. It is almost impossible to see the way, my king. The snow is thick in the air.
I see. And you believe that we should halt, isn't that so?
She appears taken aback, and so are you too. Loki doesn't usually seem to care much about advice from others.
I would not think to question.
Speak freely, girl.
I would stop before the path narrows, sire. The ice will be treacherous, and the beasts and their drivers are likely worn thin already. I know that time is of the essence, but it is a risk.
Do you suppose your Lady Skadi would agree? It is she who directs this convoy.
Lady Skadi is doubtlessly braver than either of us, sire.
For a moment or two, Loki simply studies the two of them, and Griep reclaims her seat by her sister, clearly ill at ease with the idea of challenging Skadi's wisdom.
Tell me, do you suppose that your lady would be eager to allow me to leave, once I am confined within the Iron Wood?
The twins look to each other, eyes wide. Is he really just outright asking them if Skadi is planning treason? Does he even expect them to know something like that? And if they did, would they even tell him? But he's the god of lies, you remind yourself. So maybe he would know.
You needn't answer. I am certain that your people are not foolish enough to test me. And, as it happens, Griep, I believe that you are correct about the storm. It will only worsen as the night comes.
He disentangles himself from you and the blankets and rises to his feet, stretching languidly. Part of you feels almost mournful as he moves to the door. Hey, don't go. You're my heating pad, you think. The other part of you is massively relieved, because the nervous tension in the carriage is so thick that you could probably cut it with a knife.
We will halt soon, as soon as there is cover. Keep warm and make certain that you eat.
Once he's gone, the twins visibly relax, though they both still seem to be a bit stunned. It's no wonder, really. What frost giant would expect Loki and Illy to show any modicum of care? There clearly isn't a lot of trust there, if there's even any at all. You're a strange man, Loki.
A stop will be good. We will be able to stretch our legs after sitting idle for so long.
Gjalep says, a forced sort of cheeriness in her voice.
Speak for yourself, sister. I find myself very well exercised. Had the wind blown any more fiercely, I might have found myself in a ravine.
Well, that doesn't sound good. We're riding past ravines right now?
Yes, mortal. Jotunheim is covered with cracks and canyons. Did you not see them when you arrived here?
No, I couldn't really see. Well, I couldn't see anything but snow. And then I found a cave, and then and then the king found me. So there was the cave, and then the palace, and I guess that place we stopped to take a break yesterday. That's really all I've seen of this whole planet.
Ah. It is no surprise, truly. I would be shocked if you had managed to navigate much of the landscape alone and unaided. Even if you managed the cold, your warm blood would have attracted all manner of wild creatures.
An anxious knot forms in your stomach at that. Hadn't Loki basically said the same thing when he first found you? I guess the fairy tales are true. It's a relief when the sleigh finally comes to a stop, because you really do want to get up and move around. The path has been so rough all morning that you can't keep your balance as the sleigh jerks and sways. Gjalep opens the door, and you're shocked to discover that there isn't a thick whirlwind of snow in the air.
Lady Skadi must have chosen this resting place. It is slightly off of our original path, but it offers better shelter. Come see, Ananga.
Your joints are stiff and are protesting as you climb to your feet, and you haul one of the large blankets with you as you go to the door. Just because there isn't a full-blown blizzard sweeping into the sleigh doesn't mean that it's magically become any warmer. She steps out into the snow, and you stick your head out to peer after her, gasping in shock. National Geographic has nothing on this. The massive sleighs have been pulled into loose ovals, and the weird clawed rhino things are being untethered and herded into clumps. What makes this truly impressive is the fact that all of it, the entire convoy, is situated under an overhang of rock that curves for hundreds and hundreds of feet above you. On the one side, there is the rock wall, and on the other, nothingness. It looks like a sheer drop into nothingness, and the next flat land that you can see beyond that appears to be incredibly far away. Suddenly, the Grand Canyon doesn't seem so grand. The knot in your throat is back. You've never been a fan of heights. This doesn't seem safe.
This is what much of the route is like. In fact, we have been traveling single file for much of the morning, as the paths along the canyons often crumble and narrow when storms pass through.
Griep tells you as she brushes past to join her sister. Oh my god, I should have just stayed in the sleigh. I didn't need to know this. What's down there, at the bottom?
A river too deep and fearsome to freeze.
Oh great, it can't just be a normal river. It has to be a deep and fearsome river. God, I hate this planet. The twins both seem pretty perked up by the prospect of getting out of the sleigh, and you give Gjalp's hand a skeptical look as she offers it to you. Yeah, I don't really want to get out.
Oh, come now, mortal. It will do you no good to hide away.
She sounds kind of coaxing, and you realize that they probably aren't allowed to leave you alone, which means that they're either trapped with you or you have to go outside. You take a deep breath. Just don't let me freeze, okay? The ground outside is icy, but hard-packed for the most part, and you're kind of relieved to find that you aren't going to have to suffer the indignity of getting hauled around like a sack of potatoes. It's the little things.
Hail, forest daughters!
A voice calls out from the top of the sleigh ahead of yours in line, and you squeak in surprise as Hrossþjófr lands on his feet only a pace or so in front of you. You're starting to think he's a little nuts, because the guy is almost always smiling, including now, even with his eyelashes coated in ice. Maybe the rest of the giants are right, and magic just makes people crazy.
And mortal.
He graciously amends, but his cheerfulness does nothing to soothe Griep's glare.
How fortunate we are to find ourselves in the same fire circle.
There is no fortune in it. There is only duty. We are to keep near to the king, as are you.
Then the Norns must favor me, Invidia.
He snickers, and Griep's face flushes lavender. You can't tell if they're flirting, or about to stir up some kind of old clan feud, and it's kind of a worrying range of possibility.
Or they seek to test me.
She begins, but Hrossþjófr holds out a fist, smiling winningly at her sister.
I have a gift for you, Goraudadotir. Something that might have been for your sister, had she a softer tongue.
Gjalp's eyes widen as he drops something into her palm, and Hrossþjófr smirks over his shoulder as Griep seems to freeze.
I suppose I'd best help with the fire. They could likely use a Sedbeirendi to start the spark, don't you think?
He winks at you as he turns and saunters towards the pile of logs that some of the other giants are amassing in the middle of the loop, humming some nameless tune as he goes. He really is cocky. You kind of like him, though, assuming he isn't actually planning to kill you. That's actually your big caveat for Gjalp and Griep, too. You like them, but you're also kind of terrified of them. Gjalp twists her palm, and a silver chain unravels, a tiny leaf-shaped pendant falling at the end of it. It looks to be made of the same stone as Skadi's dagger, and it's clearly very well made. I guess I was right about the flirting.
Here, take it, sister. If it was meant for you.
I do not want it. Coming from a stormer Jotnar, it is like as not charmed or cursed. Leave it in the sleigh.
Her sister shrugs but complies, and you nearly die of relief when the three of you finally move closer to the now crackling fire. Loki spends most of the day and night bossing people around, from what you can tell, but he does stop by your fire a time or two under the pretext of strengthening whatever spell he's using to keep you warm. As his fingers slip under your hood to ruffle your hair yet again, you can't help but wonder if he actually just misses you. At the very least, he seems to crave some sort of comfort. It's almost kind of nice to know that you're that comforting to him. Heiðr and Hrossþjófr have managed to keep a pretty decent conversation with Griep and Gjalp for the past few hours, though the leaf necklace remains unmentioned. You guess it makes sense. There doesn't seem to be very many younger giants on this trip, and the only other ones who look like they might be anywhere near them in age are servants. Well, servants and Prince Bylester, who is thankfully keeping his distance.
You should turn in. The weather is clearing, and we will be on our way as soon as the sun rises.
Loki tells the twins. He doesn't make an appearance in the sleigh during the night, and while you're sure Griep and Gjalp are probably overjoyed, you're honestly kind of disappointed. It's actually a little worrying how difficult it is to fall asleep without listening to his breathing, and it seems your eyes have just fluttered closed when Gjalp is shaking you awake again.
Wake up, Nanga!
She says, smiling brightly. They actually both look a lot perkier than yesterday. Of course, you think, they probably haven't been sleeping well with the broody Sorcerer King bunking with them. It's morning already?
It is. And the air is clear. We will be leaving soon, but we thought that we might go to one of the lookout points a bit further up the path. The view is stunning, and I know you have not had the opportunity to see much of Jotunheim.
Rubbing the sleep from your eyes, you attempt to stifle a sigh. It probably is really stunning, but it's also probably cold, and you're tired. The twins are both thrumming with excitement, though, so you cave in pretty quickly. After all, Loki just renewed your warming charm, hadn't he? And he'll only be right down the path after all. You doubt you'll even be far enough away for him to lose your scent. A fact that should be really damn creepy, but is actually starting to seem a bit reassuring. "Where are you three going?" Heiðr calls out as you pass by their sleigh, and her brother's head pops out of the doorway only a moment later.
We are taking Inunga to see the sunrise. She has seen very little of our world.
That's apparently seen as an invitation, because they decide to join you. Look at me. I have a little entourage. I must be the coolest kid on the block. It would be really nice if you knew that things wouldn't turn sour if their clans decided to oppose Loki at some point. It would be nice to know that they're actual friends. It's just Stockholm Syndrome. You remind yourself, for what seems like the millionth time. Don't fall into that trap. They think you're a pet, not a person. The sunrise over the wide expanse of the canyon is admittedly breathtaking, but in a terrifying sort of way. The rocks that you can make out through the blankets of snow and ice are blue and sharp, the cliffs completely sheer. You've never been able to see the sunlight clearly here, but it's not a warm, sunny yellow like it is at home, and it does nothing to soften the cold of the landscape. It's beautiful and harsh and alien, and you feel a tiny bit of panic bubbling in your chest. This isn't Earth. You'd known it wasn't Earth, of course, but you weren't quite prepared to actually come to grips with it. It's so beautiful. But I think I'd like to go back now. Of course. Heiðr begins, but she's interrupted by a loud bellowing from the camp, and then all their eyes widen in panic. For a moment, everything freezes.
Take her!
Griep cries, and you realize, as Heiðr seizes your shirt front and practically throws you towards the canyon wall, that their sensitive ears must have picked up the sound of falling boulders seconds before your own. The world blurs past you as you land heavily against the stone, and the ice on the path around you cracks in splinters as the rocks hit. The Storm Twins reach your side first, but Griep and Gjalep are still rushing across the ice when one of the larger boulders crashes down right in front of you, and someone is screaming, but then you soon realize that it's you. What is probably only a millisecond later, but feels like hours, the spray of rock and snow settles. Gjalep is wailing by the shattered edge of the cliff. Griep is gone. It's over! It's over, mortal! Please stop screaming! It's over! Heiðr is telling you, but you can't entirely hear her. Her brother is cursing, you think, though it's not in any language that you recognize, and you follow stiffly as they rush to Gjalp's side. She's crouched on the lip of the cliff, searching. You cannot go after her, Gjalep. The footholds are too narrow. You will fall in as well, Heiðr says, grabbing her arm and trying to pull her away.
No!
What good will that do? As they are grappling, your eyes fix on Hrossþjófr. He's standing silently, peering down into the canyon, his lips pressed into a thin line. Then he mutters something under his breath, and before you can stop him, before you can even cry out to warn the others of what he's about to do, he's diving off the edge. Gjalep and Heiðr stop their struggling, and you rush to look over the cliff, your adrenaline somehow making the height seem much more dizzying and much more surreal. You can make out his form plummeting for a split second, but then, before he collides with the ribbon of water churning so far below you, there's a splash of green. Hrossþjófr is gone, and some kind of fish hits the water in his place. Your shock hasn't had time to register by the time Loki reaches you, and you feel like a ragdoll once again as he yanks you away from the precipice.
Where are the others?
My brother jumped after her sister.
He turned into a fish.
Gjalep wails, her face falling into her hands. The rest of what she says is muffled, but weirdly enough, Loki doesn't seem all that surprised. He does, however, seem pissed.
Foolish boys and their heroics.
He snaps, and then he closes his eyes, taking a long, deep breath. And then he's flying into the vast emptiness of the canyon, too. As Loki falls, your heart plummets alongside him. Maybe you should just toss yourself off the cliff, too. Things probably aren't going to work out too well for you if your lifeline has just killed himself in a bout of reckless heroism. Though you have to admit, the reckless heroism is, in and of itself, pretty swoon-worthy, provided that he doesn't actually die in the attempt. You find yourself at the lip of the cliff again, realizing belatedly that you had scrambled back to the edge as soon as he disappeared over it. Loki would probably be upset about that, wouldn't he? He only just snatched you out of harm's way. But then he threw himself off the cliff, you think, so he can't really judge. Somehow, he seems to fall more slowly than Hrossþjófr, but you're pretty sure that's not how physics works, so maybe your mind is just cracking up a little under the stress, making your senses distort. A shimmer of light glides over him midway down the canyon, and your stomach lurches as his form slides and morphs, a massive black raven streaking straight towards the foaming river below. His angle changes sharply and suddenly, and the bird that was Loki skims along the water for a moment before diving beneath the surface, quickly out of view. The entire thing, from the avalanche of rocks until now, couldn't have taken more than a minute or two.
Idiot! How can he leave me like this?
You think, tears blurring in your eyes. But then, some other part of you is almost proud of him. You can't help but wonder, too, if he would jump after you like that. So quickly, so instinctively. Common sense and reason tell you not to count on it. But the part of you that's quickly starting to crave his company likes to imagine that he would. Behind you, there's just chaos. Gjalep is still sobbing, and Heiðr is apparently the only one out of the three of you who has it together enough to stand and face the crowd of frost giants who are rushing down the path to find out where their king ran off to so suddenly. She's rattling off something in her language you can't understand, and when you turn to look over your shoulder, you see that she's addressing the Valva. The old woman seems remarkably calm about all of this, and you don't know if that should be reassuring or infuriating. How can she just stand there looking so emotionless? Even if she doesn't really care about Loki or Griep, Hrossþjófr is practically her family. As you watch the Valva nod slowly, you realize that whatever Heiðr is saying, it doesn't sound like the language the other giants occasionally use in the palace. Apparently, you aren't the only one to notice, because as a ring begins to form around the three of you on the edge of the cliff, one of the bigger guys pushes his way forward, impatient.
Enough with your serpent tongue, said Kona. What has become of Loki Laufeyson?
Silence falls. Apparently that's considered pretty rude, even for giants. Skadi and Bylester are just making their way into the circle as the Valva gives an odd little half smile and points down into the canyon. Skadi's eyes are wide. You wonder if it's sincere concern, or if she's just riding the wave of panic from nearly getting crushed by a waterfall of rock.
What has happened to the king, speaker? How did he fall?
Heiðr blinks slowly, and you worry that she's about to faint. You know you're definitely on the verge of it.
The king has gone to retrieve my brother Hrossþjófr, as well as your kinswoman, Lady Skadi.
Murmuring breaks out at that, and you edge away from the cliff. though the idea of crawling closer to the giants isn't very promising either.
Perhaps Loki Lofison thought to flee his impending battle with Monagarm. A liar prince, and a coward, like all of the Aesir.
One of the other frost giants barks out, hefting what looks to be some kind of club over his shoulder. The whispers from some of the giants standing near him seem to indicate that a significant portion of them do think that Loki is actually crazy enough to risk cliff diving to escape a fight. Your fists clench. Surprisingly, it is Bylester who responds.
Silence, Sneirima. You speak of your king.
Would he have survived a fall from such a great height? With his wound still so fresh with dark elf magic, and after spending his satyr to shield the camp?
Skadi asks, turning towards the prince. Oh no. Is she trying to say that he's dead? Loki can't be dead. He can't be. You curl in on yourself, shivering. Shivering, but not freezing. Which must mean... He's alive! You blurt out, battling the urge to scoot backwards as the sea of red eyes turn their attention towards you. No one tells you to be quiet, though. They all just stare. The Valva still has that creepy half-smile on her face, and Skadi's eyes are quickly narrowing. So you look towards the only face in the crowd that seems completely neutral. Bylester. Your voice is shaking, but they already think that you're weak and useless, so you guess it doesn't matter too much. His magic! The king's magic! I can still feel it on me! His charms are still working, so he can't be...
Why does the mortal speak?
One of the other giants asks, the ridges on his forehead creasing as he frowns at you.
We should return to the palace with Prince Bylester. This folly with Odin's son is ended.
Another says. And then another giant chimes in, a pointy-eared woman standing just behind Skadi's shoulder. No, we must continue to Jornvadir, to meet with Prince Helblindi and relay all that has happened in his absence.
This entire journey's been cursed from the start.
Watch your tongue, Hrimthurs. Your kind may not abide by us, but the Skogar Jotnar are true to their word. And Queen Farboti has pledged our loyalty to Loki Lofison.
An older frost giant snaps. Please, somebody say that you're going to help Loki. You pray, your eyes starting to water and sting. If they don't, you're likely as good as dead. Because even with all of his strength and magic, there's no way he can make it all the way back up here alone. Bylester is still studying you. You have to give him credit. You expected him to be a lot more satisfied with the fact that his usurper half-brother is probably on the verge of dying and being out of his way for good. He holds out his hand.
Come here, Unanga.
Your face blanches, but there's no one there to protest for you. Gjalep is too much of a mess to notice or care that you might be in danger, and it's not like you can really blame her for it. Knees shaking, you push yourself to your feet, tottering over to him as the giants all seem to inexplicably grow taller and more menacing. Fear is funny like that. Not knowing what else you can possibly do, you gingerly take Bylester's hand. He raises it slightly, presumably so that everyone has a better view, and a faint blue sheen creeps over your skin. There's a faint stinging, and you flinch, but nothing happens.
The mortal spoke truly. My cold will not burn her. My brother's magic is still intact. This means that he must live, does he not?
He looks to the Valva, who just nods.
Then we will go deeper into Ymir's teeth, and hope to intercept them further down the path. Can you lead us further down, Lady Skadi? Closer to the river?
It will lengthen the journey, sire, but I can.
There is no point in the journey without the king and his wolf slaying. Make ready to travel, and do it with haste.
To say that you're shocked would be an understatement. It would be really nice if he did let go of your fingers now, though.
Very well.
We will need to push the damaged sleighs into the canyon, lest they gather ice and impede our return.
Skadi pulls Gjalep to her feet, quickly passing her off to one of the other women. Apparently, she isn't the comforting type. Unsurprising.
See it done. Come along, mortal. You will be riding with me now.
And then he turns, pulling you after him through the throng of gathered giants. He sits cross-legged before you, his chin resting in his hand. A few other giants are lounging in the back of the sleigh, but Bylester has seated you in the very front, surrounded by a mountain of scarlet pillows. You aren't really sure if that's meant to make you feel more secure or more trapped. At the moment, you're kind of bouncing back and forth between the two.
Do you truly fear him? Can a mortal feel such a loyalty? And to a creature such as Loki in Ili?
He says, following what has probably been the most uncomfortable silence in your life. You open your mouth to reply, then realize you don't know what to say, so you close it again. Bylester continues to stare at you. What would he look like, you wonder, if he had the same light eyes and pale skin as Loki? Would he be any less frightening?
You are very frightened.
Yes, you whisper. There's no point in lying. Even if he couldn't smell it, your teeth are practically chattering, and only some of that can be blamed on the cold.
I can see the question in your eyes, girl. You may ask it.
Okay. Why did you tell them to go after him? I didn't think you would, especially with the others saying what they're saying. Your mouth feels like cotton, but since your usual defender isn't around to keep you safe, it can't hurt to entertain the brother who's currently in charge, can it? Bylester leans forward slightly, running a finger down your cheek, and your heart pounds, but you're able to keep yourself from lurching away. He doesn't look menacing, really, just fascinated.
These tears you've shed, are they for him? Or yourself?
Both. For the others too. They've been kind to me. You picture Griep curled up happily with Snowball, and Hrossþjófr's cheeky grin, and Loki, and your eyes start to well with tears all over again. Is he really alive? You don't know how the magic works. Maybe the spell is feeding off of you somehow, making it last. Maybe he's down there in the river, broken and bloody, worse off even than when he was when he first found you. Bylester's hand drops away.
Have I not been kind to you?
You don't answer.
The others despise him because they do not want a son of Asgard on the throne of Jotunheim. Even if he has Laufey's blood, even if the customs demand it. They think that Helblindi should be king. He is very much his father's son, though less clever, perhaps, and more brutal.
And you? Bylester smiles.
I despise him because he laid waste to Utgard, all to please his false father. He killed our father.
Then the smile slides away.
Though, I must admit that I understand his actions as well. The legacy of ancient kings can be bitterly oppressive.
I don't understand. Stretching himself back against the cushions, Bylester gives a half-hearted shrug.
As I've said before, I will wait to see how my brother Helblindi chooses to act. My mother swore loyalty to Loki Laufeyson, for now, and I see no need to break it. And for his part, Loki is clever. I cannot help but wonder if he truly is as great as he claims to be. I always was the curious sort.
After a tense hour or two of answering the prince's questions about Earth, which seemed to have no discernible rhyme or reason, he leaves you at your end of the sleigh, moving to talk to the giants at the opposite side. They don't bother speaking in any language you can understand, and you're kind of relieved, because it makes it easier to tune them out. You don't know what to do with yourself, and some desperate, pitiful part of you just wants to turn back the clock to the last time you were sleeping on Loki's chest, his arms wrapped around you. He may be a little crazy and dangerous, sure, and wildly unpredictable, but you trusted him. It might not be smart, but you just felt it in your bones. And so, you curl up into a tiny ball, praying to anyone who might be listening that they all somehow made it to the bottom of the canyon in one piece, and they didn't shatter and drown on impact, and that they're still breathing. The path is even sharper now, so steep that you can actually feel the incline pulling you closer to the wall of the sleigh. If it wasn't for the woolly rhinos' claws digging into the packed snow on the trail, you'd probably be careening wildly down the slope. That thought just makes you feel sick. You doze off for a while, but you can hear the rumble of the boulders and Gjalep shrieking every time you close your eyes. Eventually, you sleep long enough to dream, but it isn't pleasant. In your dreams, Loki's skin shifts and morphs into a terrifying, unnaturally large black bear, and then he starts to chase you through the snow. You try to run, but you're moving as though you're swimming through molasses, and he's almost on you when you start to wake, your head cracking against the wall behind you. Pushing yourself up, you wipe the sleep from your eyes, wondering if this was all just a terrible, terrible dream. But it wasn't. You're still in Bylester's sleigh.
We are stopping now to rest the animals in Unga. We are much deeper into the canyons now, and the path is difficult. You may go outside.
He tells you. Normally, your answer to that would be a resounding hell no, but you would much rather be with Gjalep or Heiðr right now. They're probably the only other people in this entire convoy who want Loki to appear as badly as you do. You figure you're supposed to wait until he leaves. That is how royalty works, right? They do things and everyone follows. The cold bites into your skin as your boots hit the snow. The warming charm is fading, you realize. Does that mean that Loki is fading too? Or is that it's just been a while since he renewed it? Gjalep is huddled in on herself by the fire someone hastily built, one of the other frost giants sitting with her arm around her shoulders. You hesitate, unsure if your presence will be welcome. What if she blames you? Griep was focused on saving you when she... You blink fiercely, and thankfully, the tears don't come down this time. It's a good thing, too. In the cold wind, they might freeze. Time passes. You don't know how long. Time has stopped to mean anything in this place. When they tell you to wake, you wake. Otherwise, you just sleep. The sun doesn't shine any longer, and the heavy gray clouds make you doubt that it was ever there at all. Some inkling of scientific curiosity makes you wonder how long the days are on Jotunheim. How many days have passed on Earth? Has it been long enough for them to report you missing? Long enough for them to declare you dead? Heiðr finds you standing on the edge of the path, trying to see down into the shadowy ravine below. The snow is falling now, and your breath ghosts in front of your face.
He has to be alive, doesn't he?
The others may have little faith, but my brother is not weak, and neither is your master, she says after a moment or two, placing her hand on your shoulder. You glance up, but she's staring down into the darkness too. You wonder if she can see anything more than you.
Lady Skadi, do you smell that?
One of the giants standing watch suddenly calls from a little farther down the path. Skadi isn't far from you, and you can see the confusion in her eyes as she stands from her place by the fire.
I do. Jotun blood.
You run down the path, slipping and sliding on the ice. It's stupid, and it might get you killed, but if it is his blood, then he needs help, and you're all he's got. Even with a moment's delay, Heiðr catches up quickly, and soon there's a whole trail of giants following behind you, driven by either the curious scent of their king's blood, or by their desire to see Loki's mortal foolishly slip and fall to her death.
There!
Gjalep cries, and you squint as the wind burns your eyes, struggling to make out any movement as your strange entourage makes it to a sharp bend in the road. It looks as if the snow itself is moving on the edge of the cliff at first. Then you see the shining dark eyes and the flattened ears of a very, very contrite-looking Melraki. He scrambles, or is likely tossed over the lip of the cliff, and he staggers for a step or two. Then he rolls on his back, his tongue lolling out from his mouth as he pants furiously. Heiðr claps a hand on her mouth, a sudden sob of relief torn from her throat. A blue hand grips the icy rock of the ledge only a second later.
What?
Skadi begins, but Griep's limp body is shoved onto the snow next, and the king climbs up after her, covered in ice and blood, his breathing ragged. His eyes are fire as he surveys the silent throng around him, chest heaving. But then, Gjalep falls to her knees at his feet, clasping his hand.
Sire, thank you. Thank you.
Loki looks down at her for a moment or two, apparently dumbfounded. He carefully extracts his hand from hers, awkwardly patting her on the head. He says nothing. Instead, as whispers start to break out amongst the crowd, he stalks over to the mewling snowball, fixing him with a deadly glare.
Change. The longer it's out of its socket, boy, the worse it'll be.
There are plenty of disapproving gasps as Snowball melts and morphs away, leaving a very gray, very miserable-looking Hrossþjófr in his place. Heiðr doesn't look very surprised, but she also seems frozen in place, as if she's afraid that if she starts to move, she might find out that he's not really there at all.
Sit up.
Loki takes Hrossþjófr's arm and twists it none too gently, and your stomach lurches as his shoulder pops back into place with a sickening crunch. Hrossþjófr wails, and his sister seems to finally break free from her trance, rushing to cradle him in her lap. There's a lot of talk in the background, but it all drowns out in a blur.
He's okay.
Skadi is kneeling by Griep, who, unlike Hrossþjófr, isn't even conscious. The blue almost entirely seeped from her skin, leaving a stony gray in its wake.
Does she live?
She asks, looking over her shoulder to where Loki stands swaying. You want to run to him, but you don't.
Yes. Take your brother to the Volvis sleigh, Heiðr. Bylester, if there are any healers among you, you'd best have someone fetch them. Gjalep.
She looks up at once, though she keeps her sister's hand pressed against her cheek.
Yes, sire.
As he steps closer, there's a look on his face that you'd almost describe as gentle.
I am going to have to cause your sister a great deal of pain. Her bones have begun to heal too quickly. I am going to have to break them to mend them. Do you wish to accompany me, or remain behind?
I will stay by her side.
Loki nods once and then stands. You wonder if anyone else notices how he lurches slightly to the side as he does. How badly is he hurt?
Someone bring her then, and quickly.
He stalks past the rest of the crowd, and then back towards the sleighs, barely hesitating as he snatches up your hand to pull you along with him. His skin feels like cold fire, and you gasp. Glancing down to where your hands are joined, Loki frowns, and the burning eases a little. There's no heat left in him, you realize. No warmth, and probably almost no magic. Considering all that just happened, you don't feel like it would be very wise to complain about your own discomfort. You can't really tell the sleighs apart from one another, But when he throws open the door to the one he's dragged you to, you realize it's the one you've been sharing with Gjalep and Griep, and him. There's a bit of a manic, distract sort of look in his eye as he unceremoniously lifts you by the waist and heaves you inside the sleigh. And then, one of his cold, cold hands is cupping your cheek.
Are you warm enough? Are you hurt?
No, you whisper, and then the dam breaks and the tears start to flow, and you throw your arms around his neck as you silently sob against him. You thought he was dead. Loki stiffens and then gingerly pulls you away from him, his eyes narrowing slightly.
What has Bylester done to you?
He asks, his voice deadly soft.
Has he touched you? I can smell him on you.
He spits it out, like he hates to even admit that he can. He had me ride in his sleigh, that's all. He didn't do anything bad. It's okay. I'm okay. You try to force a convincing smile, but you're such a mess right now that it probably looks more pathetic than encouraging. He studies you for a moment and then nods, like he somehow scanned your brain for lies and you had come up clean.
Good.
You feel a sharp loss as he pulls further away from you and hops back out into the snow, but he isn't quite quick enough to hide the fact that there's genuine relief in his eyes.
Stay here. Open the door for no one but myself. I'll be back soon.
It feels like hours before he comes back, but it's probably been less than one. A servant helps carry Griep into the sleigh, and when she's settled, Gjalep curls up around her, burying them both in blankets. You can't tell very much about her condition, but she is a little more blue at least, and the fact that she's even there must mean that she's on the mend. Loki leans out the door and barks orders, and the sleigh is already lurching into motion by the time he collapses beside you.
Warm me,
he says, the dark circles under his eyes so pronounced now that they can be seen even through the blue of his skin. You like to imagine that he says please, because you're pretty sure he's thinking it. You gather every blanket you can reach and climb into his lap. His arms wrap around you beneath the layers and layers of covers, and then he starts to slack almost at once. You want to ask him 1,000,001 questions. How did he do it? Did he already know about Hrossþjófr? Is Griep going to be okay? Is he going to be okay? But you do know he's spent, so you hold yourself back. They can wait. Instead, you tentatively slide your fingers through the edges of his hair, which is slightly damp from melting ice. He hasn't even taken the time to use his magic to dry it, or maybe he just didn't have any magic left. Loki?
Yes.
His voice is so soft you can barely hear him, and you press your cheek against his chest. I'm really, really glad that you're okay. He hums an acknowledgement, and his hand comes up to cradle your head, almost as if he's pressing you closer to his chest. When you finally sleep, the nightmares don't dare come. You're pretty sure that Loki hasn't moved even a fraction of an inch the entire time you've been asleep. In fact, when you first open your eyes, you think that you've barely slept at all. But no, your mouth is dry and your eyes are blurry, and there's a slight bit of light illuminating the window, which means that it's most likely a new morning. But really, who knows? Gjalep sits near her sister, sharpening a knife. She's staring off into space, and the look on her face is kind of intense. The stone strikes her blade again, and you think you see sparks fly. Gjalep? She looks up, startled.
Oh, you are awakened, Anga.
Her voice drops a bit as she whispers.
Is the king still sleeping?
Sleeping is probably an understatement. It seems like he's practically in a coma. Yeah. What's that for? Gjalep slides her sharpening stone against her blade again, a look of determination set on her face. You realize you haven't seen her try to look stern very often, and it doesn't fit her all that well.
The king is vulnerable, and if anyone truly wishes him harm, now is the opportune time to strike.
Her jaws tighten, and she looks back to the work in her lap.
I owe Loki Laufeyson a life debt. Beyond my fealty to him as my king, that is. I will die for him, if I must.
Oh, God. This is heavy stuff first thing in the morning. I guess. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, alright? People dying?
One can always hope.
That's not exactly reassuring. She seems pretty focused on the whole knife sharpening thing, and you figure maybe it's just her way of dealing with stress. Worried that you're bothering her, you turn instead to the king beneath you, wiggling around in his lap to get more comfortable. Then you decide that if he's going to be unconscious for a while, maybe you should try to rearrange him a little. Being half propped up on the cushions might not be comfortable in the long run, especially if you're planning to stay on top of him. And you are definitely planning to stay on top of him. You stand and try to drag one of the cushions from under his shoulders, hoping to get him into more of a normal sleeping position, but the man is ungodly heavy. It makes you realize just how much he usually accommodates you, because you can barely budge the dead weight of his arm, let alone his whole body.
How is he so freaking heavy?
Do you need help in Unga?
Gjalep sounds like she's about to start laughing, and you sheepishly nod. Loki isn't going anywhere anytime soon with you trying to move him on your own. She tucks her knife in her belt and comes over to join you, and between the two of you, you get him spread out onto the sort of mattress you've cobbled together from a bunch of large pillows. But to be entirely fair, Gjalep did most of the actual work. Should we do anything for them? You ask. Now that he's flat on his back, he looks a lot more dead. Blue-gray, stone-still, and lifeless. It makes you a little panicky, honestly. Now you get why Gjalep was so focused on sharpening her knife. Standing around watching someone recover from a near-death experience isn't exactly good for a person's nerves.
I cannot say. I know that Ili expected my sister to sleep for some time, but he did not reveal the extent of his injuries. I do not believe that it would be wise to reveal that he is in this state. I suppose they both need rest.
She gestures helplessly to his prone form. What about food? They were in that canyon forever, freezing, and they need fuel to recover, right?
Everything that we have in the sleigh would be difficult to feed them, for now. A broth would be ideal, I suppose. Or a soup.
Are those even different things? You aren't sure, but you do agree that something liquid would probably be easier to get into Loki and Griep than whatever sea monster steak they've probably got packed away. Okay, let's get them some soup or broth.
I will, as soon as we stop to rest. The king was very insistent that we reach the forest as quickly as possible, so I do not know how long it will be before Lady Skadi decides to call for a halt.
She places a hand on your shoulder, though she doesn't quite sound as convincing as she probably hopes.
Do not worry, for I have witnessed Loki Laufeyson's magic, and I am quite certain that he will be just fine.
You feel guilty then, because Griep is in a lot worse shape than Loki, and here her sister is, trying to comfort you. You should get some sleep. We should both get some sleep, I mean, can't look after them if we're worn out too.
This is true, mortal.
Gjalep says, managing a smile, and then she goes back to rejoin her sister. That leaves you and Loki at your end of the sleigh, and you only hesitate for a second before you curl up against his side, pulling the blankets back over the both of you. Really, at this point, you figure it doesn't even matter how ridiculous the whole thing is. You feel better when you're pressed up against him, and you hope that it'll make him feel better too. His clothes are kind of gross, and you're noticing now that he has a faint, wet dog smell about him, but you guess that it's probably more of a wet Malraki smell. The guy needs a bath ASAP. But tragically, the idea of giving Loki a bath just reminds you of the last time he got you alone in the bathing pools below the Palace of Utgard, which makes you feel things. Embarrassing things. There are things you probably shouldn't be feeling about the jerk who's basically kidnapped you, who's literally keeping you as a pet. But that doesn't stop you from smoothing his hair from his face, or wrapping your leg around his. You do it tentatively, sure. You wouldn't want to wake him up after all. But you still do it. It's just to make sure he stays warm enough while he's recuperating. Still, even though you're exhausted, you can't seem to fall asleep, so you end up running your fingers through the edges of his hair and thinking. There are many thoughts warring for attention in your mind. All of them pretty much hinge on Loki. Loki, who'd probably throw you out with the bathwater if it came down to it. He's already told you that you're disposable, hasn't he? You realize that as eager as you are for this hellish adventure to end, you can't quite imagine it ending. How can you go back to your normal, boring life after meeting someone like him? And will they even let you? You don't know exactly who they are, but you've seen enough movies to know that people who hang out with the villainous aliens don't usually get to just go home. A cold fear races through you then. What if they lock you up? You're basically an accessory, right? If Loki gets called up before some kind of galactic senate for judgment for taking over Jotunheim, are they going to take you too? Should you hope for some force of good to sweep in and intervene, or should you hope that he's successful in his coup? Because if you're being totally honest with yourself, you almost kind of hope that he ends up being successful. Loki starts twitching and scrunching his face up at some point, and you wrap yourself up around him a little more tightly as you realize that he's shivering. Maybe it's some kind of fever, or maybe it's some weird magical thing, but you figure that all you can really do is hold on to him and hope for the best. If he really is as cold as the shivering makes him seem, at least maybe you're helping. You're a little startled when he cracks open an eye. It still has the faintest tinge of red, though the rest of him has faded back to normal Loki. Or is blue Loki really the normal one? You aren't really sure how to think of that. In addition to the redness, his eye also has a little bit of a glazed over look to it, and you start to get a little worried.
You
wait for him to say something else, but he doesn't.
Yeah, it's me. I'm here. I've got you.
You finally reply. Maybe he's looking for comfort, you decide, and so you tentatively run your thumb along his cheek.
I'm here.
Loki scoffs, but with his face half smushed against a pillow, he doesn't look nearly as intimidating as usual.
Of course. Always are. Human.
Should you feel insulted or amused? At least he called you something other than mortal.
Yeah, I'm a human. You've got me there.
There's a tiny chance that you're enjoying this opportunity to be a little extra sarcastic, but it isn't like you actually get to sass him out loud very often. Really, you figure you deserve it. Scowling, Loki closes his eye and shoves his face further into the pillow. You're fairly certain that you can see sweat starting to bead on his skin.
Pretty little wretch.
You're frozen. Did he just... But he's already fallen back asleep. Loki is a lot warmer now. Or maybe you're just burning with awkwardness because he managed to roll over enough to spoon you while you were asleep, his arm and leg draped over yours, half crushing you. Every time he takes a breath, you feel it barely brushing against your hair, and it's making you feel a little insane.
Why is he so damnably hot?
You tell yourself that you're really messed up for having the urge to press yourself back against him, but it just seems so natural. like some long-hidden instinct is calling out to you, encouraging you to curve and mold to his form.
The guy is essentially hibernating. Stop being creepy.
Your inner voice scolds. It looks like you aren't going to manage to escape his clutches anytime soon, so you try to fall back asleep. And you aren't really sure if you actually heard him mumble your name as he nuzzles the back of your neck, or if you just dreamed it.
Mortal, wake up.
You're being shaken, and you realize groggily that there's a firm hand on your hip. Grunting in annoyance, you push yourself over onto your other side. Loki's staring at you, a surprisingly petulant look on his face.
Oh, right. He's in bad shape, and I'm supposed to be taking care of him.
You remember as the sleep clears your head. How are you feeling?
I feel like I leapt off a cliff into a freezing river and carried 2 nearly grown frost giants out of it with no assistance whatsoever. I feel like I've used every ounce of Heiðr in my body and that I am currently extremely vulnerable. But primarily, I feel hungry.
You nearly laugh in his face. It's a pretty abrupt end to an otherwise serious tirade. I'll get you something, okay? I thought soup would be good, but Gjalep said there's no soup until we stop. Should I tell someone to stop? I'm not really sure how—
No.
Loki interrupts, and then there's an awkward pause as he seems to study you for a moment. Did you say something weird? You don't think you said anything weird.
Get whatever you can find. As deep as we are in the canyons now, we should not stop until we reach another village.
There are villages around here? It seems like a terrible place to try to settle, considering the fact that there's almost no shelter from the wind. Then there's also the avalanches to take into consideration. Still, you can't help but be a little excited at the prospect of stopping for a break. A bathroom would be nice, and so would a fire. The twins are both passed out, and you don't want to bother Gjalep, so you dig around in the baskets and trunks until you manage to scrape together what you think is a pretty decent snack. There are salted cracker things, every bit as green as the weird biscuits, but not quite as bitter, and dried jerky made from some animal that you prefer not to picture. You open a few flasks, trying to find some water, but everything you find smells suspiciously similar to the mead or tree wine, or whatever it was that basically destroyed you back in Utgard. Even though you don't have any intention of touching the stuff with a 10-foot pole ever again, should you try to get him to drink some?
Well, why the hell not? Maybe it'll help.
You think, tucking it under your arm. It's not like you have any experience in taking care of frost giant sorcerers or anything. Maybe it'll at least warm him up a bit. Loki pushes himself on his elbows as you stumble back to his side, the rocking and bouncing of the sleigh making you even clumsier than usual. Honestly, it's a blessing that you don't end up falling flat on your face. Sinking to your knees beside him, you hold out the flask. Here, drink this. He takes it and gives it a sniff, and you think you see a little bit of a spark returning to his eyes.
Trying to intoxicate me, mortal? What an interesting ploy.
I'm trying to help, actually. His lips curl slightly in the ghost of a smirk, and then he proceeds to drain the entire thing. You might want to take it easy.
I'm in extreme pain at the moment, mortal. I believe I've earned the relief.
He says bluntly, recapping the flask and dropping it to the floor beside him. Then, he pulls something from some pocket that you hadn't even noticed he had and pops it into his mouth. Frowning, you hold out the trencher. You're pretty sure that downing industrial-grade alcohol and popping mystery medicine isn't all that advisable, even for an alien sorcerer. Will you eat something then? He nods, but he doesn't make any move to take any of the food from the little wooden trencher balanced on your lap, and you're overcome with dismay as you realize that he's probably going to make you feed him. Somehow, the idea of feeding him seems almost more scandalous than him feeding you. It does seem like he's struggling to even keep himself propped up, though, So you tell yourself that it's kind of a special scenario. To be totally fair to Loki, he did just risk his life to save 2 people. People that you actually like. So that's why you tear off a tiny piece of sea monster jerky and hold it out in the air in front of his face, feeling incredibly self-conscious. You've never nursed anyone back to health before, and it's very intimate and... Eyes locked with yours, Loki opens his mouth. This doesn't mean anything. This is entirely clinical, you tell yourself. You shove the tiny little morsel into his mouth as quickly as you can, and his eyes glitter as you chews. Unfortunately, it seems like the king has decided to interpret your speed as some kind of stupid challenge, because every time you bring another bite to his lips, he seems to move a little more quickly too, and by the time he manages to capture your fingertips in his mouth, you can't even begin to pretend to yourself that it's accidental. You rock back on your heels, cheeks crimson. Loki's actually got a bit of a flush going on too. Is it from the fever, or because he's drunk? Maybe both. Are you done? There's an embarrassing, strangled quality to your voice, but you comfort yourself with the fact that he's probably too out of it to even notice. Except really, he probably notices everything, no matter how under the weather he is.
For now.
His tongue darts out to wet his lips, and then he abruptly falls back against the cushions. Eyes closed, he fumbles around until he manages to grab you by the sleeve of your tunic, and then proceeds to try to drag you to his side. It's actually a little disturbing how weak he seems. The fact that he's even having to try to move you. You shove the trencher and the flask out of the way and climb under the blankets. You can deal with the mess later. As you rest your head on his chest, Loki lets out a little sigh.
You smell like me. Safe.
He whispers, like it's some sort of proud secret. Does he mean that you're safe, presumably from his brother, or that he feels safe now? The fevered ramblings of a half-dead, inebriated sorcerer god should really come with some sort of interpretation guide, you decide. It's probably best to just split the difference. Yeah, we're safe.
Good pet.
He pats the side of your face. You're assuming that he meant to go for a pat on the head, but his aim is clearly off at the moment.
Little mortal.
But strangely enough, it still makes you smile. By the time the convoy comes to a halt, Loki seems like he slept off most of the fever, as well as most of the effects of whatever it was that he took. He's back to his usual grouchy self from what you can tell, and even though he isn't exactly springing back to his feet, he is being exceptionally bossy. He orders Gjalep to wake up Griep and make her drink some water. You're a little embarrassed to realize just how many containers of water are stashed away in the sleigh, considering you couldn't find any when you were looking. Maybe you really aren't cut out for this whole servant thing. It is a relief to see Griep awake, though, even if she still seems incredibly groggy. Loki has Gjalep send for servants to come help move her sister from the sleigh to wherever it is that you're going to be taking your break, and he manages to get himself upright before they show up. Say what you want about the man. He is good at keeping up appearances. Skadi is waiting just outside of the sleigh when you emerge.
My king, you seem well recovered,
she says, inclining her head in a slight bow.
Well enough.
The village leaders are very eager to meet with you, sire. They would like for us to dine with them, if you'll permit it.
Of course. We need to stop for a time to rest, and we might as well spend that time indoors. Lead the way, Lady Skadi.
She smiles and takes his arm, and you're left to trail after them as they follow the path towards the cliff wall, like some kind of forgotten third wheel. Like a pet, the insidious, increasingly worrisome side of your mind whispers. You shouldn't be bothered by it, right? It's really dumb to feel anything like jealousy over Loki. And you tell yourself that it isn't jealousy, and really, to a large extent, that's true. A lot of your dislike for Skadi does come from the fact that she acts like you're about as important as a bug, and from the fact that she seemed way too entertained by the idea of using you as a blood sacrifice. But if you're being completely honest with yourself, part of it probably comes from the fact that she's apparently number 1 on the list of Loki's potential wives, too. That's the part that you should probably try your best to snuff out. The giants in this village live in halls carved directly into the cliffside, and so you decide to call them cliff giants in your head. Someone mentioned some other name for them, you think, but you can't remember what it was. No one is really bothering to explain anything to you this time, and it makes the whole thing a lot more uncomfortable. The cliff giants literally look like they're made out of rock, and after seeing so many shades of blue for the past week or so, it's kind of odd to see just how gray they are. Their skin flecked just like smooth river pebbles. They also don't seem to be particularly fond of humans, and you're starting to wish that you had just been left in the sleigh. Overall, you would describe the village as kind of claustrophobic. The homes that they've carved into the cliffs are nice, you guess, and pretty impressive, but some of the giants' heads nearly touch the ceiling, and even though you don't exactly have that problem, the overall vibe is just cramped. You prefer cozy to cramped. For example, curled up by the fire in Loki's spacious bedroom, as opposed to crushed into a corner surrounded by 9-foot-tall giants. Because these giants are definitely on the taller side of the spectrum, it seems, and it makes the whole thing a lot more stressful. You never thought you'd think of the twins as petite, but that's how they seem now. Or at least, that's how Heiðr and Gjalep seem. Their twins aren't present in the hall. You figure that Griep and Hrossþjófr are probably tucked away somewhere to recuperate. Really, you're kinda surprised that Gjalep isn't with her sister. Loki is seated at the main table with all of the giants that must be important. There's an older giant sitting next to him, and he's big. Not only tall and broad, but also on the portly side. You get the impression that he's the boss, or lord, or chief, or something like that. Bylester is on the other side of the giant lord, and Skadi is at Loki's right hand. You're left standing in the corner behind them, feeling for all the world like a petrified block of angst. There's been a lot of staring. There's even been some conversation that was clearly about you, but it wasn't anything that you could understand. If you tried to crawl into Loki's lap, would he shove you to the floor? Probably. Gjalep is the only one of the giants that you really know that you can actually see well, since she's seated further down the table. She keeps fidgeting and looking around the room, like she's waiting for a fight to break out, or for an assassin to spring from the shadows. Maybe she really is expecting something like that. Does Loki even know that he's got a new loyal bodyguard? One of the giants who's been walking around serving food eventually saunters over to you, a tray tucked under his arm.
Go away. Either bring me something to eat or go away,
you think, craning your neck to look up at him. The giant looks at you up and down slowly, as if baffled by your very existence. You remember that you're supposed to act timid to avoid trouble, so you drop your gaze. Except, some part of you thinks that it's pretty stupid that you have to act so subservient to a guy who's clearly just a servant, considering you literally sleep with the king every night. Without warning, the giant reaches out and pinches your cheek. The only sound he makes is a curious hum, like he's evaluating the ripeness of produce in the grocery store. You're too startled to hold back a tiny cry, clamping your hand to your face as you press back against the stone. It hurts. Loki's voice cuts across the room then, low and sharp.
You might wish to inform your thralls in Margri that the price for playing with my mortal is a steep one.
He hasn't even turned to fully look at you, though many of the other giants at the table have now swiveled on their benches to stare. Great, now your cheek is sore and you're about to be in the middle of one of Loki's tempers. At least the giant who pinched you retreats, moving to stand further down the wall. He doesn't look very contrite though, and your own temper builds. The lord laughs, loud and grating.
You'll have to forgive his curiosity, sire. Many of the young ones had never seen a mortal. All of ours died out centuries back. They do not breed well, you know. Terribly expensive to keep a good stock, even when we were afraid to bring them from Midgard.
You feel sick.
Of course, in Margri, Mortals are such odd creatures, but very entertaining, are they not?
Skadi says quickly, and then she puts her hand on Loki's, and your heart lurches. Are they so entertaining? It looks very frail. What sport could be made with such a creature? Another giant at the main table asks, her voice dripping skepticism.
Yes, yes. It's hardly the sort you'd use for fighting, or baiting the hounds. Those were always my favourites. What is your mortal good for, sire?
The Lord says, craning his neck to take another look at you. Your fists clench, and your nails dig so deeply into your palms that you almost expect them to bleed. At least the sensation is something to focus on, because you feel like you're about to start screaming. Loki's head finally tilts slightly, raising his jaw as he glances at you from the corner of his eye.
Nothing. Nothing, aside from keeping me warm.
He replies, expressionless. There's some rude laughter from around the table, and your nails dig deeper into your palm. He turns back to the table, and even though you don't have the best view of his face from where you're standing, you can see the corner of his lip turning into a smile.
And if any of your men put a hand on my mortal again without my explicit permission, I'll cut it off.
There's a moment of awkward silence. A few of the cliff giants look downright offended, while some just seem a little surprised. Then the Lord lets out a gurgling sort of laugh, and a few of the other giants follow suit.
Perhaps they should call you the greedy one instead, in Ely.
Oh no, I find that Inili suits me quite well.
That's one of the creepiest things about Loki, you think. The fact that he can just say things like that with a charming smile on his face, going about his dinner like he'd never been interrupted. A few more giants laugh. It seems like this group just seems to find everything funny, including death and dismemberment. And torture. Torturing humans, to be specific. You remind yourself. You really, really wish you were still on the sleigh. Gjalep looks tense, but she doesn't budge from her seat, which is a little disappointing. You were hoping that Loki would send her over to take you somewhere else. Anywhere else. The woman who spoke before, the one who seemed so skeptical of your entertainment value, speaks again. Is that truly all it can do? I do not understand the appeal.
Actually, she speaks well enough. Her tales of Midgard are amusing, I've found. In fact, I've even heard it said that she can read.
Bylester cuts in. He sits back, arms crossed, and you can tell from the angle that he's looking right at Loki.
I cannot imagine why you take the time to teach a mortal to read, sire. By the time it's learned anything, it will be dead.
The Lord declares at that. He cranes his neck to look at you again, squinting in contemplation.
This one probably has, 20, 30 years left at most.
Christ, I hope not. Where's he even getting that number from? You think. And then you realize that ancient humans on Jotunheim must have had pretty short lifespans, and the churning in your stomach builds.
Perhaps less.
Skadi sounds way too happy about that, and if you didn't feel so sick, you'd probably have a lot more energy to devote to being furious. Loki pulls his hand away from hers and picks up his cup.
How far would you say that we are from the forest, my lord?
Well, sire, if you do not stay the night, you'd likely reach the very edges of the Ironwood within the next day. Geroder's keep is not far, by my recollection.
That is correct, sire. If we forge ahead, we can make it to my father's keep within the next day, and we may rest there for a time.
I doubt that your father would be pleased to accommodate all of you, girl. You do travel with a pack of storm witches.
Her face darkens.
We honor the authority of the Volva, my lord, as I am sure Lady Skadi will tell you. To suggest otherwise...
Peace, child. I have known Geroder for much longer than you have even been alive. I know his ways, and I know how he feels about Storm or Jotnar.
He says, and you can tell that his patronizing tone grates on Jalep's nerves just as much as it grates on your own. You're not surprised that the Valva remains silent, since that seems to be her whole shtick, but you are surprised that Heiðr doesn't speak up. You guess that she must be preoccupied.
We are a kingdom united. The forest giants are happy allies of the storm giants now. Is that not so, Lady Skadi?
His Majesty speaks true. Queen Forboti has pledged us to the king, as have our stormer Jotnar friends. It is time to let old things die, I suppose.
The dawn of an interesting era.
Indeed, my lord.
It seems like you've been mostly forgotten as the chatter about alliances and rivalries continues, and you sink down against the wall, your legs finally giving out. You're cold, you're hungry, and you're hurt. Even knowing that he's playing games, that he's acting a part, the fact that Loki looked at you and called you worthless in front of a room full of people stings. True, he did also say that he'd start cutting off hands if anyone else touches you, but you feel dehumanized. And bizarrely enough, Bylester is the only one who even referred to you as something other than an it. No one bothers you, though, and you guess that even though they thought Loki's threat was entertaining, they must have also taken it seriously. Wrapping your arms around yourself, you daydream of hot food and crackling fires. Eventually, the dinner begins to wind down, and when Gjalep comes over to get you, you're so relieved that you could cry.
Come along, Inanga. I am going to go fetch my sister and help her back to our sleigh, and I do not think that it would be wise to leave you behind. The king is preoccupied, she says, her hand resting on her dagger belt. Stiff from sitting on the stone floor for so long, you force yourself to stand and follow her into one of the hallways that leads away from the main hall. Loki does seem preoccupied. As you pass behind the table, you notice that he seems to be in deep conversation with the Cliff Giant Lord and Skadi, and he doesn't even glance up at you. Is the spell he's using to keep you warm fading because he's exhausted, or has he just forgotten about you? Griep is awake and nursing a bowl of soup when you reach her room. You guess that it must be some kind of guest hostel or infirmary, because there are quite a few narrow cots, with the door to a small bathroom off to one side. Wash up quickly. I will bring something for you to eat in the sleigh. I do not like this place, or in Magri. The king will do well to leave as soon as he is able.
Yeah, I bet that I like this place even less than you do, you think. You're relieved to have access to a bathroom and some mildly warm water, even though the facilities aren't exactly fantastic. Still, scrubbing your face feels nice, and it gives you the sense of being a little more put together, more in control. Gjalep hands you a bag as soon as you re-emerge, and it's heavy.
Can you carry this? I need to help my sister.
I am fine.
No, you are not. You nearly died, and there is no reason for you to pretend that you are already healed. I will help you walk, or I will carry you, but those are your only options.
Griep relents, and her sister helps her from the bed, wrapping her arm around her waist. You notice then the tiny leaf pendant hanging from its chain around Griep's neck. Is Hrossþjófr okay? You ask, hefting the bag over your shoulder. You don't really mind. At least Gjalep had the decency to phrase it as a request, rather than a command.
He is recovering, but the king has had strong words with him over his irresponsible use of magic. I know little of such things, but what he attempted was apparently far beyond his novice skills as a skin changer. The king said that he is lucky that he did not kill himself.
I can't believe that he was Snowball. You watch Griep's face out of the corner of your eye, trying to judge her reaction. Her lips press together in a thin line, but she doesn't say anything. You're assuming that she hasn't had the chance to confront him about that yet. But man, it's sure to be explosive when she does. Even after the convoy moves on, Loki doesn't show up in your sleigh, and the hours just crawl by.
You think about Skadi taking his hand, and you think about him saying that you're good for nothing. And then you think about him whispering your name in his sleep and saying that you're pretty, and it all becomes jumbled into one huge mess. Job did make good on her soup promise, and she'd given you a big container of it. Something that looks a little bit like the thermos you used to take for lunch in school. More salty fishiness inside, and slices of something that look like mushrooms. Considering that even some mushrooms on Earth are poisonous, you hope that these won't kill you. At least they taste pretty good if they do. Your standards have really dropped since this whole thing began. You notice that Griep seems a little stressed when her sister mentions that you're heading straight for their parents' place to spend some time, and you also notice that her hand closes around the leaf pendant, which she quickly stuffs back under her tunic. Uh-oh, that's not a good sign of things to come.
Are you alright in Unga?
Griep asks, resting her head back against one of the cushions. It seems like she's determined to stay up for a while, even though she looks like death.
Your cheek is red.
Oh, I got pinched. One of the servants thought it would be funny, I guess. She looks aghast, which you think is kind of funny in a weird way, considering she was in the court when you first arrived, when people were joking about literally eating you. Have things changed that much since then? Maybe they have. The giants there seems harsh. You add, it seems like the twins weren't big fans of them either, so you figure it's probably okay for you to let off a little bit of steam.
They are. Those who dwell in the canyons and cliffs do not care much for the rest of the realm's affairs, and they are known for playing to whatever side offers them the most wealth. Other than travelers, they rarely interact with any outside of their clans, especially since the war.
You rub your cheek, hoping that maybe it won't actually bruise.
It will be better for you in our father's house. We will make certain of it.
Loki doesn't show up until much later, long after you've fallen asleep. You wake up to his hand on your cheek, and your first instinct is to smack him away. Instead, you grunt in annoyance and try to roll away, only to realize that he's lifting you in the air. He must be moving you back down to his end of the sleigh, and your irritation builds. He didn't seem all that interested in you before, and now he wants to cuddle up? Nothing aside from keeping me warm. Such an ass. Let me go. You mumble as Loki settles himself heavily onto the bed you made for him, his arms holding you tight. And then, just in case you didn't get the message, you add, I'm not in the mood.
Not in the mood? It is your job.
He sounds a little amused at first, but when you remain stiff, you can feel him tense behind you.
What is the matter with you?
It probably isn't a good idea to pick a fight with him, but you're having a lot of feelings, and you're pretty sick of it all. So you figure there is no point in trying to hide it. Nothing. You reply, but there's a little bit of venom behind it.
Oh, I see. Come here.
I am here. Loki huffs, and then twists you around until you're face to face. Asgardian again, you notice, taking in his light eyes and the paleness of his skin. There are bruises and scratches that you hadn't been able to see before, and you wonder why he hasn't managed to heal them yet.
You have no right to take this tone with me, mortal. Do you really not understand how delicate things are? How very close it is to falling apart at any given moment?
You said that I'm nothing.
You are nothing.
The words hit hard, and you try to recoil, but there's nowhere for you to go, so you settle on closing your eyes. You might have to listen to him, but you don't have to look at him. Loki sighs, presumably finding your feelings frustrating.
How do you fail to realize that it is better for you to be nothing?
That's not...
Did you know that this is all smoke and mirrors? Look at me, girl.
You obey, albeit reluctantly.
There is hardly a drop of magic left in me. Not enough to even fully heal myself. Or enough for this.
He taps your cheek, and you wince.
This is not some game. What would you have me say? That I've gone soft? And for a mortal?
He just doesn't get it.
I am not going to risk my throne for you. Nor have I given you any reason to expect it of me. At the most, I've offered you protection. And even that is conditional.
No matter what he says, as he runs his thumb across your cheek, you can't help but notice that he looks a little distressed. You decide to take a risk. Am I really nothing? Loki frowns, and as he opens his mouth to respond, you quickly add, to you. He pauses, and his eyes flicker from yours to the mark on your cheek, the one he's still stroking.
I do not know what you are.
He says after a moment or two. You wait for more, but he doesn't say anything else, and you bury your face against his chest, your heart falling. It was stupid to even ask. What did you really expect him to say? Like he said before, he never promised you anything. Not really. You're just two people stuck together in bizarre circumstances, trying to stay alive. The cuddling thing is just some weird coping mechanism. It doesn't mean anything. Wanting it to mean something isn't going to change that. It's so infuriating that you're close to tears. Just go to sleep. You're tired and you aren't being rational. Just go to sleep. And you think that he's fallen asleep too, until he pulls you closer, your head tucked under his chin.
You shouldn't be.
He says, so softly that you almost can't hear him.
But you are something. Someone. To me.
Has something happened in Unga?
Gjalep asks, placing another card onto the floor. You don't really understand the game yet, but you don't mind. At least they're trying to teach you. It's sweet, and the distraction is nice. What do you mean?
The king seemed very odd when he left.
Odd. Yeah, that is one way to describe it. I don't know. I guess he's got a lot on his mind, considering everything that's going on, you know? She nods thoughtfully, and Griep leans over your shoulder, tapping one of the cards in your hand.
This one. It will destroy her lands.
You set it down, and Gjalep sighs in frustration.
I always win at this. You could not find a better teacher.
Griep tells you, smiling as she twines the chain of her necklace around her fingers.
Yes, which is why it is not fair. I thought that I might win a game for once.
You laugh a little, glad that the conversation has been steered away from Loki. He barely even looked at you when he slipped away earlier, and he seemed irritated that you even woke up, like he'd been hoping that he wouldn't get caught. It's because he said you mean something to him, and now he regrets it. Typical. But you tell yourself that it's okay. You were just feeling a little extra vulnerable anyway, and he's just had a near-death experience. Really, the whole thing is probably adrenaline bonding, with maybe a little Stockholm thrown in. Just don't count on him. He's too fickle. You can't afford to count on him. You kind of get it, too. If Loki acting weird and out of character around you in front of the giants is going to cause chaos, then you guess you'd rather just suck it up and deal with it. Hurt feelings are better than being dead, right? Because if anything happens to Loki, if he loses the throne, you know you're as good as dead. Griep and Gjalep couldn't save you. They might want to, but they're basically just kids. If you're caught up in some kind of revolt, if the tide turns against Loki, then all bets are off. No protection, no chance of ever making it back to Earth. So with that in mind, you tell yourself to get a grip and stop letting your feelings affect you so much. But it's a lot easier said than done. The game eventually wraps up, and the three of you decide to find a snack. Aren't you excited to be going home? Back to the forest?
Yes, only it will be difficult, I think, to know how everyone will react.
Our father is extremely loyal, but our clan has expected Prince Helblindi to become the king someday, you see.
Having a Skogr Jotnar on the throne is very important. With the line of succession disrupted, everyone is waiting to see what Loki Laufeyson will do. Which tribes will he give the most honor? Who will he wed?
And the fact that he is a Sedabrandi and that the storm giants are with him, there is bad blood there in Anga, and it cannot be erased so easily.
But it was Queen Verbauti who called the Velva in the first place. I don't understand. If you guys don't like magic, then why let a magic lady say who gets to be king?
The Volva is different. She is blessed by the Norns. Who are we to question what has been decreed by the Norns?
Griep says patiently, like it's the most obvious thing in the world. That isn't exactly a fantastic explanation, but you decide to let it go for the time being. The one thing that you know they're right about is the bad blood. It seems like everyone has an axe to grind with everyone else, and Loki has landed you smack into the middle of it all. You can't help but worry that the twins are kind of underselling the level of danger involved in this whole expedition. Will Prince Helblindi be at this place?
It is more likely that he will be at Primheimer, the hall of Lady Skadi's father. That is our eventual destination, and it is from there that the king will go forth to slay the wolf Menagermer.
What does that mean? The wolf's name?
Moonhound. It is said that he will devour the moon someday and feast on the dead after the twilight of the gods has come.
That's bleak. Are there not any positive myths around here? Fun fairy tale stories with romance and happily ever afters? It sure doesn't seem like it. It's an interesting reflection of the culture, you think. Maybe they'd be a bit more generally pleasant if they did have more happy stories. Gjalep seems to have noticed that you're brooding, and she smiles at you, patting your knee.
Father will likely hold a feast. Would you like for us to dress you up in Anga?
Dress me up?
Yes, as we did before. I am certain that we have some clothes that will fit you from when we were children.
With the makeup and everything?
Yes.
She looks excited, and considering the terrible few days that she's had, you can't really bring yourself to refuse her. It's harmless, and it'll give you something to do. Maybe it'll help Griep relax too, since you're suspicious that she's super fixated on the whole parents finding out a storm giant with a crush tried to save her thing. Okay, sure. Just, maybe only the lines this time. You can make them match the pattern on Loki's face, right?
Of course.
If you're going to let them play dress up, you might as well make a statement. Hey, do you guys have, like, razors or anything like that? You ask on impulse, and they both stare at you, so you add, a straight razor even? For shaving?
Shaving? Well, we use a blade or scissors to trim our hair. Is that what you mean?
I mean, shaving body hair? They both continue to stare at you. Legs? Armpits? No? You try, feeling increasingly awkward. They shake their heads, and you decide to give up. You're not about to try to shave your legs with a freaking dagger, so bring on the fuzz. It doesn't really matter that much anyway. Perks of being bundled up on an ice planet. How long before we get there?
It should not be long, I think. Rest in Anga, and try not to worry. Everything will be fine.
It turns out that Gjalep and Griep's father lords over a massive wooden fortress surrounded by a palisade that seems to be built around actual living trees. The trees themselves are massive, but they seem a little thin relative to their height, and the few branches that they do have are laden with snow. Seeing trees at all seems odd now, after so many days of nothing but rock and ice.
Oh, a big grassy field would be amazing. One filled with wildflowers.
You're guessing it'll probably be a long time before you see anything like that again. Gjalep keeps you close as she helps her sister to the gate. Most of the convoy hadn't emerged from their sleighs, but you can't really blame her for being eager to get inside. If there's one thing you understand completely, it's homesickness. The gate opens, and giants spill out, all lithe, all pointy-eared, and most scantily clad. It's a tiny bit warmer here, maybe, but you still think the whole lack of coats thing is kind of ridiculous, even for ice planet aliens. Maybe they're just showing off because they have visitors. As the sisters start giving people directions, from what you can gather, they must be servants, you hang back and try to study the crowd. There's an actual child among them, one of the first kids you've seen this entire time, and he's probably a few inches shorter than you, which you find terribly disappointing.
What is that?
He blurts out, pointing directly at you.
This is Loki Laufeysson's mortal pet, an Anga. She is not to be touched without the king's permission.
Gjalep replies, putting her hand on your shoulder. The kid just gawks at you, and you pull on your hood, trying to hide as much as possible.
Go start a fire in the king's chamber, Bjarki, and make sure that there are plenty of furs. Mortals have thin skin.
He scampers off, watching you over his shoulder as he goes. You fight the urge to stick out your tongue at him, but then you remember that he's probably at least a few centuries old, and the whole thing weirds you out.
We will take you to our rooms, for now.
Griep whispers in your ear. She's leaning on you a bit heavily, you notice, but you don't want to say anything. You doubt that it's intentional. She really shouldn't be trying to stand on her own at all, considering everything that she's been through. The rest of the members of your party begin to trickle into the courtyard. Heiðr and Hrossþjófr join you soon, arm in arm, and Griep stiffens. You're pretty sure that she wants to escape, but since her sister is busy chatting, she's stuck leaning on you. Hrossþjófr's smile is faint, and so is his voice.
You look well, Evidia. Are you going to string me up by my ears as you promised?
She stares at the snow for a few moments, and when she replies, her voice is equally soft.
You lied to me. You sought to make sport of me.
Griep, you must know that I...
Stop. You should not speak so freely with me. I do not wish to hear it.
Come, brother. We should attend to the Valva and to the king.
He looks like he wants to argue, but since Griep won't meet his eyes, he gives up.
Very well. I understand.
They then turn to leave. Griep's hand is clutching at her tunic, probably where the pendant is hidden, you imagine. It is a lot easier to get yourself caught up in someone else's drama than it is to worry about your own, so once you're fairly certain that there's no one within earshot, you ask,
Do you really not want to know what he was going to say?
There is no point to it.
Her shoulders sag, and as you glance around the courtyard, you realize that Heiðr and Hrossþjófr, along with all the other storm giants, are being given extremely wide berths, along with some pretty open glares. It isn't going to be a fun night, you can already tell. Loki's standing with Skadi again. You're basically in her domain now, so it makes sense. But you still feel kind of petty.
Hey, remember last night? You remember that?
You want to say.
Yeah, like that would go over well.
Griep and Gjalep eventually take you inside the wooden fortress and guide you to their room. There's a large fireplace, which is a massive relief, because your hands and feet are starting to feel numb from standing out in the cold for so long. Their beds are simple wooden platforms, covered by a thin mattress and more heaps of blankets, and the decorations are sparse. You had expected something a little more homey.
We must go greet our father and mother, mortal. You had best stay here for now. We will lock the door. You will be perfectly safe.
It really feels like you can't catch a break. You've been starting to feel really comfortable with the twins, and Loki said that he kind of cared, but somehow you're still being left alone in yet another unfamiliar giant abode. They leave, and you take the liberty of curling up on one of the beds, your muscles tense and knotted from the stress. Loki. He isn't going to make you sleep here, is he? You mentally slap yourself. You should be worried about the opposite. If you had any sense at all, you'd be glad that you get to hang out with the girls instead of being Loki's blanket, pillow, pet, or whatever you are to him. Something. At least you're something to him. This might be the worst giant feast you've been to so far, and that is saying something. It's just so freaking tense. Griep and Gjalp's dad, Girodor, is an imposing sort of man, even though he definitely isn't the tallest giant you've come across so far. He's loud and opinionated, and one of those options is apparently all storm giants suck. Most of the house seems to be pretty disapproving of humans too, which is really disappointing, but not at all that surprising. You've already overheard people asking the twins how fast you can run, and what color you bleed, and a dozen other questions that scream red alert. The nice thing, if you can really call it nice, is that Loki magnanimously decided to keep you in his lap. Of course, Loki being Loki, he's also basically managed to ignore you the entire time you've been here, despite the fact that you're literally on top of him. Why does he even do these things? But at least you aren't off in a corner somewhere, or sitting on the hard-packed dirt floor. At least none of the other giants are going to try to touch you, considering the king doesn't seem very keen on sharing his toys. You curl around his chest, feeling embarrassingly clingy. But then, what's wrong with being clingy? The last time you were very far from him in a strange place, you got your face pinched by some 8-foot-tall oaf. Said cheek is currently pressed against Loki's shoulder.
How do our daughters fare in the court of Utgard, Lady Skadi?
Girodor asks.
They do you proud, Geror. The queen regards them highly, as does our new king. Is that not so, sire?
Very loyal girls. They've proven invaluable to me.
Loki says, resting his hand on the top of your head, his fingers drumming against your hair.
Have they? Yet they've been set to work with witches and that mortal.
Girodor's wife smiles thinly over her mug.
We all journey together, my lady. In these times, it is important to keep our friends close, you know.
Yeah, right. All the storm giants have basically been shoved into a corner of their own table, including the supposedly revered Volva.
You do not approve of Sede?
Loki tucks a strand of your hair behind your ear. His voice is smooth, charming, but the fact that he's fidgeting with your hair kind of betrays the fact that he's feeling tense too.
Sador makes men mad. Kings, too. But everyone already knows that you are mad, Loki in Illy.
He declares, apparently not worried at all that he's just insulted the new king. You expect Loki to freak out at that, but he doesn't even flinch.
A man is a fool who does not make use of his gifts, Girodor.
He leans back slightly in his seat, a slight shift in posture that you doubt the others will even consciously notice. He's sprawling, trying to look carefree and confident. It's hard to block out the memory of him telling you that he's basically running on empty as far as power goes. The show is all that he has.
Perhaps, if Loki had been a bit more appreciative of spell work, he'd still be alive today, sitting here to chat with you about the glorious past.
Perhaps he should have known more caution when mingling with Stormer Jotnar. And you would not be sitting here chatting with me about your glorious present.
It's a clear taunt, but apparently baiting each other with insults is just a common Jotunheim pastime. because Loki just laughs instead of punching the guy in the face, which is what you halfway expected him to do. Heck, you'd want to punch someone in the face after making snarky comments about your long-lost mother like that, and you only have a tiny fraction of Loki's pent-up rage. The rest of the dinner goes by pretty quickly. For the most part, Loki sits back and lets the forest giants do all the talking, though you notice how easily he seems to slide into any train of conversation when he wants. It's mostly names and places you've never heard before, and you mostly tune it out, only to snap to attention when Griep and Gjalep become the center of attention.
They should have their teeth sharpened when they return to Utgard. They've been old enough for it for several years, and it's time to look for matches for both of them,
their mother says. Neither of the girls say anything. In fact, while Gjalep has a pleasant, agreeable smile fixed on her face, Griep doesn't even look up from her plate.
You will oversee it, Lady Skadi, will you not? Or Queen Fabauti?
I would be honored, and I am certain that the Queen Mother would be pleased to assist as well.
I do not suppose that you'd have a place for them at your table, would you, sire? As you have found them so invaluable.
Garoda asks, red eyes glinting. You're confused, but you feel Loki stiffen slightly.
We shall see,
he says, and Griep seems to sink even lower into her chair. The conversation moves on to something about crops. You tried to pay attention, but you're really tired, and by the time the dinner has ended, you're practically passed out in his arms. That seems to be a trend, and you should probably be a lot more concerned about it than you are. He doesn't carry you to bed, which is a disappointment, but an expected one. Instead, you trail behind him as a servant leads you to the bath, because apparently, no giant worth their salt builds houses without indoor bath pools. To be fair, these are smaller, and from the raised flooring, you get the impression that they're probably heated with pipes or something similar, but it does still seem a little over the top for a fortress in the woods. Loki follows you inside the steamy bathroom, and the two of you undress back to back. He still hasn't really said anything at all since he told you that you're someone, and you're getting the impression that he'd probably take it back if he could.
Great. I'm so astonishingly awkward that I broke old Silvertongue himself.
You race to hop into the water before he decides to be his usual, inappropriately teasing self, but the water isn't nearly as hot as you expected, so you yelp in surprise. Loki spins around, and you screw your eyes away from his gloriously naked form.
You definitely didn't see anything inappropriate. Nope, no way. Ooh, the water's kinda cold.
You hurry to tell him. What does he think? That assassins are in the bath or something? Though the instant turn to rush to your aid, because that's what you're letting yourself believe he was about to do, is pretty nice for your ego. Loki lets out a long, suffering sigh, then joins you, the blue receding from his skin. He looks like a marble statue, you decide. A bruised, battered marble statue.
Ugh, get it together, girl.
So, what did you think of my look? You say, wrapping your arms around yourself under the water. He just rolls his eyes.
It did not differ too greatly from your previous look, did it? I imagine that poor Yup constantly laments the fact they cannot bear your skin enough to make you truly fashionable. At least you do not look like a corpse this time around.
Oh, yeah, I told him to go easy on the makeup this time. It's a little hard to concentrate on the carefree attitude you're trying to project, because Loki's decided that now is a good time to crowd into your space. Tilting up your chin, his thumb swipes across your skin.
Good.
Don't you dare think about it.
You tell yourself as he rubs his fingers on your cheek, smearing the lines away.
Don't think about him touching you, and definitely don't think about how gently he's touching you.
Is something the matter with you, mortal?
No. I mean, there's a lot going on. Loki pauses for a moment to rinse his fingers in the water, and then starts working on your forehead. You're frozen. It feels nice, but if you move, you're afraid that you might ruin the moment.
I want you to stay close to me while we're here. Close and silent.
Close? You left me alone all day. You probably shouldn't have said that. But Loki doesn't look angry like you'd expect. He just looks tired. Somehow that makes you feel worse.
There was business to discuss.
Business? Loki sighs, sinking into the water up to his neck.
Wash my hair.
As you run your fingers through his hair, you feel a weird urge to just wrap your arms around him, to press yourself against his back. That is crazy, right? But you do it anyway. He stiffens as soon as your arms are around him, which is honestly a little discouraging. Oh no, I'm such an idiot.
What is this?
His voice is slightly strained, but he doesn't pull away, so that's something. A hug?
I see.
When he doesn't say anything else, you give up and go back to washing his hair, horrifically embarrassed. Loki dunks himself under the water, and when he emerges, he turns to face you, straightening to his full height. His wet hair clings to his forehead and cheeks, and you're horrified to realize how badly you want to touch his face, to brush it away.
Skadi expects that I will make my intentions towards her clear, once I've defeated Managam and solidified my position.
He's watching you carefully, like he isn't quite sure what to expect, and your heart begins to quicken. Your intentions?
Yes. The choice of a first wife is a very tricky thing, it seems. The Skadi Jotnar feel like it is only right that Skadi receives the honor, as she was promised to Heiðr when he was to be king. With Skadi following Farboti as queen, they'll have established something of a Hross giant dynasty, and I'd risk losing their support if I threatened to disrupt it.
You cross your arms across your chest, feeling exposed, despite the fact that you're just as hidden by the water now as you were 2 minutes ago. It kind of feels like you've been punched in the gut, which is stupid, because you already knew that this was a thing that was happening. None of this is new information.
You seem to disapprove.
Are you just going to go along with that? Skadi?
Well, what about Skadi, mortal?
Loki prompts, and his own arms are crossed now too. I just don't like her. You probably shouldn't have said that either, but it is true.
Would you prefer that I consider the alternatives then? There is always the lovely Angerboda. I'm certain that she would be a delight. Inagri was quick to recommend his sister as a prospect. Or, if I truly wanted to cause chaos, I suppose I could choose Girodia's daughters and let the Skadi Jotnar tear themselves apart within fighting. Which of those would you like?
What? The twins?
How in the nine did you miss that? Their father has all the subtlety of a sledgehammer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't raised in a place where people try to sell off their twin daughters to a king. Loki then clamps a hand over your mouth.
Quiet. Don't you dare raise your voice to me. Not here. Remember that you are a pet, and I am a king.
Message received. Ass. You think, glaring at him.
Believe it or not, I cannot simply alter the customs or the political structure of an entire realm. You have no right to judge.
He continues in a hushed tone. You tug his hand away from your mouth, but he's probably right about the dangers of being overheard by sharp-eared, gossipy giants, so you keep yours down too. You brought it up. He frowns and then pulls his arm from your grasp.
You must be informed. As my accomplice and my thrall, I must keep you abreast of my plans.
It's hard to hold everything back. Liar, you want to call him. You want to tell him that you aren't quite as oblivious as he seems to think, and that he clearly has a hell of a lot more issues with emotional attachment. You want to tell him that he clearly doesn't care much for the rules, or he probably wouldn't be taking over a planet in the first place. But you don't say anything. Loki almost seems displeased. Maybe he was hoping for a bigger response.
your cheek. There is a bruise forming.
He reaches out to touch it, briefly. Oh, so we're just dropping the subject? Perfect.
Say something.
You said to be quiet.
I meant that you should not raise your voice to me, or challenge my decisions as king. When we are alone, you may speak, within reason.
Okay, yes, there is a bruise forming. Closing his eyes, Loki takes a deep breath and then moves towards the edge of the bath.
We should go to my chamber. You need sleep, and I have reading to do.
He dresses quickly, and you don't even have to ask him to avert his eyes. He stands by the door, drumming his fingers on the frame, oozing impatience. The evening has not been going very well. On your silent march to his room, you decide that there's no point in pouting. You do want him to talk to you, even if some of the topics of conversation are infuriating. Besides, the more he talks to you, the more he'll maybe start to realize... Realize what, exactly? What are you hoping for? That he's going to suddenly decide that he likes you? That's crazy. You're just setting yourself up for disappointment. Even if you mean something to him, you don't belong here. This isn't your world. It's stupid to get too attached. The bed in his room is pretty nice, and you clamber in as soon as the servants escorting you around leave the two of you alone. You're a little surprised when Loki settles down beside you, a book in his hand. You figured that he'd choose to brood in one of the chairs by the fire, given the current mood. He tucks a strand of his hair behind one ear as he reads, and you're immediately reminded of the way he'd been fidgeting with your hair at dinner, the tension you had felt in his frame. It softens you just a little. Sure, your life sucks, but his does too. Hey, your hair's still kinda wet. What about your magical blow-dry? Loki doesn't look up from his book.
I do not have the power for it.
Damn, you didn't realize he was still that low. But aren't you uncomfortable? It is pretty cold. Shrugging, he licks his finger and flips to the next page.
Are you trying to convince me to go sit by the fire?
What? No,
Because you can have the bed, if you like.
He thinks you're mad and trying to get him to go away, and he's willing to actually do it? I don't want the bed. I mean, I want to sleep in the bed, but I want you to sleep in the bed too, with... You hesitate for a second, because saying with me sounds a little needy. Together. Loki finally looks up at you, his eyes slightly narrowed.
You are very odd.
Yeah, me and you both, buddy. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get rescued before he actually has to get married to anyone. But even the thought of that makes your chest clench. You would still know. You can't let this become some kind of thing. You just can't. There's no happy ending here.
I cannot renew your charm, but with any luck, I'll be able to restore it before we resume our journey. In the meantime, you must tell me if you feel that you're growing too cold.
Okay. Actually, I'm pretty cold right now. Silently, Loki raises an arm, and you tuck in snugly against his side, your heart fluttering. He keeps reading, and with nothing to listen to but the crackling of the fire and his steady breathing, you're soon dozing off. You wonder if he realizes that you're still awake when he shifts slightly and presses a feather-light kiss against your hair. For both of your sakes, you pretend that you're already asleep.